say Allah, say clown it, clown Allah, Allah, say Allah, say Allah, say
All right. We are live, everyone.
Uh-oh.
Welcome back to Reasoned Answers, your home for the
crackhead clown individuals.
Today we're going to be talking about a favorite subject of Daniel Haqiqatjou. I would say his favorite subject, but I guess his favorite subject is probably child marriage. But his second favorite subject, that of cousin marriage. The Muslim apologist who has decided to embrace the idea that it is good that Muslims are marrying their cousins at high rates and having increased genetic abnormalities as a result, because that reduces intelligence. And as we all know, if you're too intelligent, you leave Islam. So this is very good for Islam. He says, Mary found a video put out by a different channel. I don't think it was inspired by Daniel, but it's called How Cousin Marriages Are Tearing the Muslim World Apart, looking at the social crisis in the Islamic world. A link to the original video is in the description. I watched the first portion of it, thought it was very well made, and Mary didn't have a presentation ready, so I said, let's react to this today. Well, actually, I said, let's react to it yesterday. Then Mary overslept yesterday, or she didn't sleep actually, and then she fell asleep in the morning and was not up in time for the stream. And then today I was up this morning, and then my wife was not feeling well, and I went to comfort her, and I accidentally fell asleep. So twice delayed this stream, but we are here now. Welcome back, Mary. What do you think about cousin marriage?
Yeah, I think that the what has been embedded in the Islamic world, that it is a solution for a problem that the Islamic world uniquely has. And also, it's an awful solution. And also, it's a terrible pattern from Muhammad. So...
Yeah, he is the pattern for conduct, and he himself engaged in child marriage. Now, it's not explicitly commanded to marry your cousin or anything. And rates do vary, as we're going to see. We're going to be looking at the hard numbers from this video. Rates do vary from Islamic country to country, but are shockingly high. For years I heard about this, right? I heard about Muslims marrying their cousins, and I was just like, that's just unnecessary personal attack on Muslims. It has nothing to do with Islam. And then I saw the actual numbers, and I was like, oh, it's not 10%. It's over 50% in many Muslim countries. This might be a bit more of an issue than I actually thought it was. So,
and here's the thing.
Of course, Daniel as well.
If in a family tree, there is an occasional cousin marriage, occasional first cousin marriage, doesn't typically have many effects unless your overall population is extremely small, in which case you're going to have small population effects regardless. But if you repeatedly marry cousins, you become your parents are more closely related than brother and sister. It is more incestuous than brother and sister. It can reach levels of incest beyond parent and child even. That is how incestuous it can be. It is bad because it is so embedded and it's so repeated. So, brother and sister each share 50% genetic material typically with one another in common.
Mm-hmm.
With cousins, it'd
wild.
Be 25. But if you keep marrying the same cousins over and over and over again, the rates can rise. It can rise dramatically. Excuse me. Siblings share 25%. Parent and child share 50%. Brain has not yet come online today.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
But
A parent child
cousin
50.
marriages can become above 60% genetic similarity, so it's more similar than parent and child.
So like if grandparents are completely unrelated, then it would be like 12% to each other. I mean, it'd be like 12% cousins,
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep. So cousin would be 12 and a half. Siblings would be 25, parent child 50, typically. And there's, with recombinant DNA, it varies. So you could be slightly more or less
Well,
related.
yeah.
But if you keep marrying along the same line over and over and over again, back again, could become extraordinarily closely related.
Right. So like, you got two cousins that are got the 12% related, right? And then they marry, and now those are the grandparents. So now they're not zero. They already got that 12 in common. So then that goes, then cousins marry again, and you got the 12 plus the 12. Not that it's exactly 12, of course, right? Because you don't get 100% of that related genes, but you get the point, right? That it builds up over time if you continue to do this. And apparently it's been going on for thousands of years, potentially, in the Islamic world, certainly at least hundreds of years in a lot of these countries. And as a result, cousins are much more closely related than they used to be. Cereal Bowl says Haqiqatjou's Wikipedia page doesn't mention any of this or support of child marriage or of slavery. So the way Wikipedia works is it will only repeat information that is found in third-party sources. So if the media hasn't covered Daniel's views, then they won't be mentioned in his article. Couple comments before we dive in. John said it would be nice to see Mary's face for a change if she's done her makeup, of course. So these daytime streams, Mary generally will never have makeup on. She has other things to do later in the day. And so if we have these daytime streams, at daytime in the US anyway, then she will not be wearing makeup. If we have a night stream, then she probably will be. Inspiring Philosophy in the House says, or quotes Junior, if you Christians would allow cousin marriage, you'd start a time. Yes, that is very correct. And then Snoopy said, oh no, the hog again. Yes. So I got Sam on, sorry, the halal hog. No relation to Sam on the message, or I mean on the soundboard there. We also have a new channel animation for those who are channel members. You already saw a preview of that. If you can go to the webpage and figure out the trigger keyword for that, as the bot just said, right? The bot just said that. So you can figure that out. And I think you will definitely enjoy that. Yeah, so you can cite someone describing their own views. But see, the problem is you got to give proper weight to his views. So like to us, his view on child marriage is like the most notable thing. But to a neutral third party or to a Muslim or whatever, he has views on many, many, many things, and that's not necessarily super important. Now, you can try it.
But to a neutral third party, it's very important.
That's true. But the problem is that since it is offensive, yeah. Well, since it is offensive, they would be less likely to be willing to publish it. But you can try it
on
an article,
a Muslim
right?
figure. Let's be blunt, on a Muslim figure. On the other hand, if you guys go in and modify Islamic pages and make it sound like you're a Muslim doing it, you can put all kinds of things in there and they stay for years and years and years, do not get changed. So
yeah, well, it's mostly Muslims
who's
that look at those pages.
For a good chunk of what Wikipedia says on certain things in Islam. Because
well, I mean, that's natural, right? Because non-Muslims aren't very interested, generally speaking. So the vast majority of people editing those pages are Muslims. So yes, they tend to have a strong bias. The same is probably true. I don't know for a fact, but the same is probably true for other, quote unquote minority religions. Not that they're actually minority, but like things like Hinduism or Buddhism or whatever, probably has mostly favorable views. Christianity, however, right? Because people in the West who edit Wikipedia
No,
are opposed
actually,
to
a good
Christianity.
portion. No, a good portion of the stuff for Hinduism and Buddhism has historical, like actual, reasonably neutral coverage. But
Interesting.
the stuff for Islam, yeah, you have to write.
Maybe because Hindus don't care enough to try to make their articles very favorable. I don't know. Anyway, I was just trying to suggest that it's natural bias as opposed to intentional conspiracy theory or something. But either way, very biased articles on Islam. When I've checked out articles, often they have very, very whitewashed versions of things in them.
No,
I'm
you
not
can
denying
get out all the whitewashing, guys. Modify it. Use your sources. Sound like a jihadi. It will stay. You just need to go in and sound like a jihadi.
Absolutely. All right. So we'll get right into this video. Again, link to the video is in the description. I think it's a pretty good video. It's not put out by a Christian channel or anything. Its channel seems to be mostly talking about political issues. I forget the name of the channel off the top of my head. I should have looked that up before we started, but it's something like, it has the word world in it. So it's like world politics type deal is what the theme of the channel is. So I'm not endorsing the channel. I don't know anything about the channel, but I do like this video. And we're going to take a look at it. How cousin marriages are tearing the Muslim world apart.
How inbreeding is tearing the Muslim world apart. There's a silent epidemic through the heart of the Muslim world, one that leaves babies blind, children paralyzed, families shattered. And it's not a war, it's not poverty, it's not Western interference. It's cousin marriage, and it's creating...
So the thesis of this video is the greatest threat to the Muslim world is cousin marriage. Might sound a little outrageous when you got terrorism, for example, going on. Nonetheless, let's see what they have to say. And what is going on here? Oh, there we go. My comments messed up for a second.
A public health crisis so devastating, most leaders are too afraid to even speak its name. In Pakistan, nearly 2/3 of all marriages are between cousins. In Saudi Arabia, it's more than half. In part,
Saudi Arabia is slacking there, just 57%.
Yeah. Let's up those numbers! And keep in mind, although Muhammad married only one cousin, the first person he wanted to marry was a paternal cousin. So he wanted to marry more cousins than he did marry. And he had a particular interest in his own cousins.
So we got Tawhid Islam here saying that rarely Muslims marry their cousins, just a few cases. Yeah, 67% in Pakistan, 57% in Saudi Arabia. And we're going to get other countries here in a second. Just a few rare cases.
Tawhid. Do you know what the word rarely means? Just type in the chat. What is rarely? Give us a definition for rarely.
Yeah, do let us know what percentage you think it is. I mean, the numbers are right on your screen. Rookie numbers.
They were on your screen when you typed that. Everyone, this is evidence of what happens when you have Islam in your brain. You look at 67% and 57% and you lie because you are so unintelligent that you think that you will be able to fool other people. Only in a few cases, deformity and child happens. Only in a few cases.
I think that he's modified, right? Because now he's realizing that cousin marriage itself is not rare. So he's saying,
he knew
deformity from it is rare, which, we might get into hard numbers on that. Certainly, it doesn't guarantee anything, right? Certainly, cousin marriage doesn't guarantee the child will be deformed.
But it does depress the IQ of the average person. The average person in these countries, they have done studies on relatedness, how closely related, how inbred a person is. And inbreeding itself without any recessive conditions still causes IQ depression. So you're still dumb. You might not look funny. You might not be below the line of mental retardation, or as they now call it, intellectual disability. You might not be below that line, but you're still dumber than you are before in an appreciable way. You are worse in school. You're dumber in society. When you come online and try to defend your religion, we laugh at you more because you are inbred, which lowers your IQ and lowers your critical thinking ability.
Yeah, I think that he's testifying that. Now, I'm not saying he's himself is married to a cousin, but I think that, or that his parents were necessarily cousin, but I think he does show some signs of that genetic history in the way he interacts here on a line. Very interesting stuff.
Parts of the UK, entire neighborhoods are now genetic hot zones. The result? Millions of children born with disorders once so rare, doctors barely knew they existed. This isn't prejudice, it's not propaganda, it's data. And as you're about to see, the numbers are shocking. But the real gut punch? The stories. Because this isn't just genetics, it's grief, guilt, and generations being sacrificed in silence. Let's look at the facts and meet the families.
So that's a very good point there by the video. It's not just numbers. It's not just something we're making fun of. This is real people, right? Who with real lives that are affected by this practice. A good number of people don't want to marry their cousins, right? But then they're forced into it because of fear of other Muslims, because of trying to keep the wealth in the family. All kinds of things go on. They're like, I really don't want to marry my cousin. Like, too bad you got to. That's how it works in our society. Data is offensive.
Yep. And keep in mind that one of the major reasons that people prefer cousin marriage, there are really two. One is to keep all the wealth in the family. Whatever pathetic wealth you have, you keep it in the family and you don't send it out. But the other one is because Islam treats women so terribly that the only recourse you have to not having the crap beaten out of your daughter every day and her beaten into a bloody pulp is hoping that you have close enough relationship with your sibling whose child she's marrying, that you can put social pressure on your sibling to get her beaten less. That's a huge part of it. That is as close as you get to a guarantee of decent treatment within a marriage. And that abuse is so rampant and so vicious and so terrible that without that protection of just social pressure of one person's parents to another person's parents to the child, that's your best hope for your daughter not being beaten into a bloody pulp every night.
Tawhid Islam says, regarding intellect, Muslims are at the top.
We don't buy it.
we don't, and this is his evidence. We don't worship human or believe in Trinity, which is incoherent and irrational, just a mere myth. Yeah, it's incoherent and irrational when you got an 80 IQ like you, and you can't understand things that are slightly more complex. But then you tell us that you can't understand God, you can't conceive of God. Just last stream, you were telling us that God is utterly like anything in creation, and then you're like, well, the Trinity is unlike anything in creation. You guys are so stupid for believing that. We believe in Allah who has hands and body parts and things, and none of them are like creation, though. We say he has them, but none of them are like creation. Yeah, okay. Good one, buddy.
Like, you can't even understand Islamic. You can't even understand the Islamic creeds. You can't understand what they say. You can't articulate them. You can't understand how they are different from one another and how they're incompatible. And honestly, Islamic creeds are written by people who are the result of cousin marriage. They are not intelligent. Well, actually, they were mostly developed by people who were converts, were trying to make it less stupid. They were mostly developed by people of Persian background very heavily, who were trying to save Islam from its incredible stupidity that Muhammad that Muhammad had taught. And so
Mhm.
changed the beliefs to something that wasn't quite as stupid, maybe. But the issue is that you still can't understand it. Even now, you can't understand that, much less Trinity, which really is not that hard to understand. Like, I explain it to the average 8-year-old understands Trinity in my Bible school classes. They understand it, and they understand it as coherent, and they can articulate it correctly
Mhm.
in a childish way, like in childish phrasing, but they understand it and they can articulate it. This is why we don't have any Muslim physicists.
Mhm.
Because if you possess the ability to understand things like high school physics, you actually develop that ability as well, you leave Islam. Because all of the arguments for it are so stupid.
Absolutely. And that's what I was going to say. Like, you could look at IQ tests, but there's debate over how accurate those numbers really are. But you can just look at society, right? You can just look at society and see the number of top scientists from different societies, see the number of inventions and things that better human society coming out of different places. And you're not going to find pretty much any. I mean, there might be a few exceptions, right? There might be a few decent top scientists who are Muslims, but they are few and far between. You get plenty of Christian scientists, of course, plenty of Jewish scientists. You get scientists from India, so therefore Hindus. You get Buddhists. You get plenty of scientists from every walk of life except from Islam. Very few there. And it's not just science, it's all kinds of fields, right? Mathematics, same idea. Technology, engineering, inventions. Nothing of value is coming out of the Islamic world except for oil, which is just being pumped out of the ground, right? That has nothing to do with the value of the society. That's all the Islamic world is contributing to the rest of the world for the most part. That's good anyway. That's good. Is oil production, which has nothing to do with intellect, of course. So there you go. In fact, even their great buildings, right? They're like, oh, we build tall buildings. Even those, they have to bring in foreign engineers and foreign planners to plan out their tall buildings because they lack the capability within their own society to build tall buildings, despite being, barefoot, naked Bedouins, as they like to claim. It is in fact foreign workers who are building their tall buildings because they just don't have the intellectual capability of doing these things. I'm not talking about individuals, right? Any individual could override the overall trend, right? Just because the average IQ or the average intelligence is lower doesn't mean that every individual is stupid. There are many intelligent Muslims, but as a group, they are not contributing much to society. But Tawhid Islam says the father of optics is Muslim. Yeah.
Middle Ages.
Sort of. Sort of, right? I'm just going to give you for argument. There's some nuance, but I'll just give you for argument. Yeah, that was 1,000 years ago, before all the inbreeding reduced the IQ. If you look at the history of Islam, early on, there's some great thinkers, and then it slowly goes down. The further you go, the less thinking going on in Islam.
And it's so funny. The vast majority of people who had good thinking were from other ethnic backgrounds and were not as embedded in Arab patterns of thought, Arab patterns of behavior, Arab patterns of marriage. Yeah. So, yeah, dude. Check the Nobel Prizes in any science for the past since it was founded.
Yeah,
you guys are good at camel breeding, falconry, because guess what? No one else cares about those things. And desalination, but most of the work is actually done by non-Muslim scientists, and then you borrow that. There you go. That's what the Islamic world can produce.
Yay! We get camel breeding. Think of where the world would be without Muslim contributions to camel breeding. All right. Let's go ahead and continue with the video.
Living the consequences. Pakistan holds a distinction no country wants. Nearly 64% of all marriages are between cousins, the highest rate anywhere on Earth. Not 6%, not 16%, 64%.
Should have probably asked the audience to guess. I would have probably guessed like, okay, I know it's high, so maybe like 10 or something, right? Because I mean, it's like 1% maybe in the Western world, and nope, it's high, but it's a lot higher than I would have imagined. 64%, almost 2/3, as they said at the introduction there. Yeah. Now, he says no country would want that, but Daniel would disagree. Daniel would say, yes, that's what makes Pakistan so great, is it's number one in the world. Pakistan leads the world. Allah says that Muslims are the best of all people. Now we know that what that means. I could never find a category they were number one in, but it's apparently child marriage that makes them the best.
Yep.
That means in
by
a
the
room
way,
of 10 Pakistan.
very quickly, for those, you have to define inbreeding. We can measure inbreeding. Inbreeding itself can be measured in populations by how much genetic similarity there are between parents. And with repeated inbreeding, again, in most of these countries, if your parents are cousins, they are more closely related than siblings. You guys, when your cousins marry each other, it is worse than if a brother and sister who never came out of cousin marriage married each other. You are more inbred than brothers and sisters. And because Allah does not understand math, he didn't foresee this as a difficulty because he's dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Pakistani couples, 6 are blood relatives. In Saudi Arabia, the number hovers above 50%. In the Gulf states, Qatar, UAE, Kuwait, rates range between 40 and 54%. This isn't some fringe practice. This is the norm. And it's not new. Cousin marriage stretches back centuries, predating Islam itself. Ancient tribes.
Blair Faith says, sad thing is this happens only for money. As Mary pointed out, there's 2 reasons it happens primarily. I mean, there could be isolated cases that are reasons. One is money, but the other is for safety of your daughter. You can't marry her to some random guy. That guy might beat her and then you won't be able to do anything about it. But if you marry her to a cousin, then you can get your brother or sister to apply pressure to the man and discourage him from beating your daughter. So money and safety. Or as I put it earlier, money and fear, right? Fear of people who are from other families.
Leaders encouraged it to keep land consolidated, bloodlines pure, and clan loyalty strong. The Bible even records Isaac marrying his cousin Rebekah. Persian advisors in the
Very quickly.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yes.
got to throw that in there.
It does record that because that was the pattern of Semites before Moses.
Mm-hmm.
Before Moses, all the Semites not only preferred cousin marriage, but would even do half-sisters from another father marriage because of their theory about how people became related to one another. That you are related via, in a meaningful way, via inheritance through the father, but you were related in a material way via what your body was built out of via the mother. And so you needed to worry about incest only with the mothers in ancient Semitic reproductive theory. A lot of incest rules had to do with the reproductive theory of their respective civilizations. And guess what happened when Moses came around? They were forbidden from doing any half-sibling marriage, and a bunch of other marriages were forbidden. And from the principle that you shouldn't marry close relatives, the Christian world has always followed a very strong dislike, if not outright forbidding, of cousin marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And it became, and ironically, the one case where there was a lot of inbreeding in the West was the Habsburgs. The Habsburgs were very inbred. And ironically, that happened because the rules about marrying cousins were so extreme that you had to go so far away that all the royalty was pretty much too closely related. But they weren't, it isn't even, it was like 7 degrees of relation. So you had to be very distantly related to be allowed. So they routinely had to get special exemptions anyway for marriages. And so then the Spanish could go, oh, but Pope, we're your big supporters. And you have to give us an exemption no matter who we're marrying. So why don't you give us this exemption for this much closer relation, as long as you can give us an exemption for whatever relation? So that's how that came about, is through those special exemptions, because the standard was so incredibly high by default.
Mm-hmm.
So
Una said, well, we should definitely address the how for us. Do not look down on your Muslim neighbor. That's part. And of course, a child born in this kind of marriage, or even a child born in, a pure ancestral relation, is at no fault for that. Right. So there's no reason to blame the person, look down upon the person who was born in such a situation. But
you look down on them if they continue it. If they're
right, exactly. We need to point out the problem to discourage it from continuing. If you just don't say anything, then it's not discouraged.
Right. And it ought to be, I mean, like, the reason why cousin marriage isn't legally forbidden in many states in the US is because people weren't trying to really do it. It wasn't really a thing. It was so rare that maybe 2 people who didn't even know that they were cousins might end up being married once. And if it happens once in a lineage, it's really no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have people who are repeatedly and deliberately marrying first cousins. And so it didn't need to be addressed. You don't have rules and laws for things that aren't a problem. And now that we have Muslim populations, it is becoming a massive problem with the health risk and the risk of freedom, because a lot of the girls who are being forced to marry into this really have no choices. And if you forbid cousin marriage, you drastically reduce forced marriage overall as well, because they're almost always being forced to marry not some random guy, but a cousin.
Mm-hmm. Pomero said, I thought beyond first cousins wasn't detrimental. So you're still going to be genetically related. Of course, the less close the immediate relationship is, the less immediate genetic similarity. But if you're continually marrying people of any relation, second cousins, or relationships that are informally called cousin that aren't technically cousins, you're still going to build up that genetic similarity over time.
Yeah,
if you're only marrying within one family. And that's what happened with the royal families for the most part.
For the
They
most
weren't
part,
necessarily
except
marrying first cousins. Occasionally, yes, but for the most part, weren't marrying first cousins. But because they were marrying within, maybe like 2 or 3 royal families, but then they're getting merged together because they're constantly intermarrying together. And as a result, the royal families do get more genetic similarity over time.
Except they weren't really all that genetically similar until the Habsburgs started marrying nieces and things like that, like and first cousins. Like the Habsburgs totally changed the pattern of marriage. So they really weren't all that closely related, because if you're going back 4 generations on each side and find one common relative, even if you do that repeatedly, it's not really an issue. But the rules did vary at different times.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much where there were rules about, first cousins were pretty much right out, and second cousins may or may not be. But generally speaking, marrying a cousin once in a lineage
Yeah, I mean,
Not a
it's
terrible
recognized.
problem. Repeatedly marrying first cousins and then occasionally second cousins, first cousins once removed, that becomes a massive problem because it builds up, because of the repetition of the act builds
Mhm.
up genetic similarity over time. Your family tree becomes a wreath, and that's an issue. That's an issue.
Absolutely. So the one more comment, since we started by talking or mentioning Isaac marrying his cousin. The Bible doesn't explicitly forbid cousin marriage in Leviticus 18 and 20. Even Israel's civil law allows it. Mizrahi and other Orthodox Jews marry parallel and cross cousins. I'm not quite sure what parallel and cross cousins is supposed to mean. The Orthodox Jewish community is pretty small, so I'm sure that there is some degree of genetic similarity that would be above an average person, but it's nothing like what we're seeing in the Islamic world. And the Bible doesn't, it's not intended to be a complete set of laws, right? It defines principles, and Christians have historically understood the marriage principles outlined in Leviticus as being against close relations, and thus why most Christian societies discourage, if not outright forbid, cousin marriage.
Right. And that's why whenever canon law was no longer the law of the land in a lot of places, cousin marriage was technically allowed, but remained pretty darn uncommon because it was not looked upon in a highly favorable light. So there is the principle laid down of close relations being not good, from which laws were formed, around which laws were formed by Christian societies that generally, universally forbade cousin marriage to a rather high degree at some times, and generally discourages and or forbids it now. Even cases, it's kind of even cases where all those hillbillies over there, they're inbred. Those hillbillies over there, they're inbred. There are very, very few cases of actual inbreeding in any families, even in the most remote and deprived parts of mountain American society, that actually fit any stereotype. You just have small communities where people are distantly related to one another, very commonly. But again, that's common in all historical societies where populations were fairly small and people were not moving around a lot. So,
in my opinion, so worthless, from Tawhid Islam, if we rank people with high intelligence, my ranking would be Jews. Oh, he puts the Jews first. Interesting. Then Muslims. Okay. Then atheists. Then Christians. Then Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, and so on. I'm off now. Bye, everyone. He's running away. He's scared of the data.
He's going to be really scared of the data if he's there.
Because he's like, it's super rare. Cousin marriage almost never happens in Islam. As the number 64 is up on his screen.
Yep.
This guy, he doesn't want data. He doesn't want data.
Nope.
He's running away. Bye, Tawhid Islam. I hope you come back later and learn about your amazing history of cousin marriage in Islam.
Do you know what's really funny? Who was it? I think it was Daniel Haqiqatjou was throwing a fit about how, well, it's really only the Jews of European background who have higher average IQs than who have the high, and who have the, especially who have the achievements in physics and medicine and everything else. They're all European background. I'm like, oh, so you're saying that even being around Muslims makes you stupider. So just being in your society makes you dumber. And also, again, in Muslim society,
Well, I mean
they would
that
be
is
more
true, right?
inclined-
Because
Yeah.
that is actually true.
It is. It is.
Mary,
It's called the Flynn
because
effect.
intelligence is partially genetic, but it's partially environmental as well. So if you grow up in a society where everyone around you is dumb, you're going to be at a disadvantage of
Yep.
acquiring intelligence yourself.
And also there's the fact that guess where more Jews marry cousins in Islamic societies. They don't do it nearly as much as the Muslims do, but if they're living in an Islamic society, they were much more likely to marry their cousins, whereas if they were surrounded by Christians who thought that was gross, they were much less likely to do it. Interesting stuff here.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get back to the video. So just a reminder, since we've been talking a little while, it's going through the history of close relation marriage, cousin marriage.
Oh, and the Zoroastrians?
Society.
Yeah, the Zoroastrians were totally incestuous, very heavily incestuous. But,
and then they died out.
Yep, then they died out.
Effectively.
Islamic era urged rulers to marry near relatives for the sympathy of kinship. So when Islam emerged in the 7th century, it didn't ban the practice. The Quran explicitly lists forbidden marriages: mothers, sisters, aunts, nieces, but notably, cousins aren't on the list. The verse concludes, "Lawful to you are all beyond these." Translation: cousins are fair game. The Prophet Muhammad himself married a first cousin, Zainab bint Jahsh. He gave his daughter Fatima in marriage to Ali, his cousin. 3 of the
I maybe Mary can help me out. I'm not sure what this photo is here, right? Because
it's a Shia.
Well, because it depicts Muhammad, but you got
no, that's Ali,
I guess
and that's Fatima. That's why Fatima's covered up. Fatima's covered up because
Ali.
Yes,
Fatima, but then you got another woman here, like giving away her daughter. I don't know, and then there's no other man, so I was a little confused.
That's more. I'm not sure who that extra. It's a woman holding the hand of another woman, but I'm not sure who the extra woman is supposed to be.
Yeah, I thought this scene was strange, and it's definitely a major Islamic figure because you got the halo on here, and everything else in this picture is angels. So you got Ali. One of these two is Fatima, and then there's another woman for some reason. I
mean, it might be. She might be. Well, the Shia usually dislike showing his other daughters because they like to say that they're not even related. So I'm not really sure who the other woman is. There's an extra woman in this image somewhere that I'm not sure what the context is. This may actually be somewhere else in the lineage that's being mislabeled. So this might be another, like one of Ali's daughters marrying someone or something like that. But I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was just confused why there was 2 women in the photo, or I mean, painting.
The first 4 caliphs of Islam married cousins. So for 1400 years, the practice carried not just cultural weight, but religious permission. Not encouragement, mind you. No scripture praises cousin marriage, but permission is enough. In conservative communities, if it's halal, it's acceptable. And if it's acceptable, it becomes expected. But here's what tradition doesn't tell you.
What he failed to tell you is that Muhammad serves as an example, and Muhammad did this, and the caliphs did this. So it's more than just being allowed. It is actually indirectly encouraged by their example. But I also agree.
Well, yeah, it's highly encouraged by his example because he talked about how hot he was for a number of his cousins. Like his sexual desire for various cousins are known. His own parents were more distant cousins. He wanted to marry, like his preference was for cousins. That is distinctly understood in the sources, that the best people for him to marry would be his own close relations because they're the best of people.
Just like he strongly encourages his friends to marry very young females.
Economics drive this as much as religion. Marrying within the family keeps wealth from leaking out. When a daughter marries her cousin, her dowry and inheritance stay within the bloodline. In agrarian societies, that meant land didn't get divided among strangers. In modern Gulf states,
Hang on, wait a
families
second.
openly admit
Women typically didn't get land. They got
Yeah,
everything.
that would be irrelevant.
It's that
there's no land going with a woman.
no, and it gets paid. The dowry is paid to the wife, and the idea is that you're not sending money outside of the family. The money that you pay to the wife is staying within the family in the marriage. So dowries or their bride prices. You buy sexual access to the wife, and then it stays inside the family in the case of divorce.
Preference for cousins is crazy.
they like to protect their wealth through relative marriages. The bride price for a cousin is typically half what you'd pay for an outsider. Family negotiations are smoother. Trust is assumed. There's
I know that was a straightforward statement of facts, but just think about what he's saying there, right? When you're buying your wife, it's much cheaper to buy your own cousin than to buy someone outside the family. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
And of course,
And it's
actually
true.
And that is actually how marriage works in Islam, right? That it's not about a loving relationship between two people. It's about a man buying sexual access to a woman, and reproductive access. I don't want to leave that part out, right? Because you get sex and you get children. That's what you get from a woman, and maybe like chores and cooking and stuff, but that's secondary to the two things of sexual access and reproductive access.
also the matter of immigration. British Pakistanis, especially in cities like Bradford, frequently import spouses from Pakistan to maintain cultural ties. And those imported brides? Usually cousins. It's a twofer. Strengthen family bonds and secure UK residency for a relative back home. In some Saudi and Yemeni tribes, the system is even more.
Natalia says family discount. Yes, a family discount here. But the point he made there in the video was pretty good as well, that because of laws regarding, immigrant status, and if you already have legal status and you marry someone, they get legal status as well. That also encourages cousin marriage as well, because, hey, who would you rather bring into the country? Your cousin or some stranger, right? So very interesting indirect effect of Western policy there, making it even more encouraged.
Or rigid. A man has a customary right to his father's brother's daughter. She can't marry an outsider without his permission. Refuse him? In extreme cases, families have been known to kill the daughter's father for dishonoring that claim. And then there's the social pressure, the kind that doesn't need violence to enforce it. Refuse a cousin marriage proposal in many Muslim communities, and you're labeled selfish, disloyal, a betrayer of family honor. Especially for young women, the weight is crushing.
And that's a very important point here, right? Because like I said, a lot of people don't want to do this. A lot of people are not voluntarily entering into these marriages, but they're forced to by social pressure, social norms, family pressure, and they enter into, Islamic marriage in general is not always great for women, but now you're entering into a situation with you having the additional burden of being disgusted, right? Being disgusted and like, I really don't want to marry my cousin. What the hell? But they're like, no, you have to. It's our culture. It's what Muhammad would have wanted you to do, because that's what Muhammad wanted. He wanted all his hot cousins and all the hot women in general. Yeah.
You're told marrying outside brings shame, that cousins make better husbands because,
Oh, yeah, I do see some comments about Ilhan Omar. As Mary pointed out, that wasn't a real marriage.
Yeah. Yeah, she was married. She was Islamically married to someone else. And again, this is an issue by requiring registered marriages in Western tradition, ancient Western tradition. If you say I am married and the other person says, if you say I marry you and the other person says I marry you, that is a legal marriage. It does not require registration. And the fact that they changed that to make it easier on magistrates is a massive issue, because we could prosecute so many people for bigamy. We could throw them out of the country. We could get rid of abominations like the Mormons who are still doing polygamy, the fundamentalist Mormon groups that are still doing polygamy. We could get rid of all that. We could punish them all. We could destroy this nonsense if it were not for having changed those laws to make it easier on the magistrates.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she was actually Islamically married to someone else, boinking the person she was Islamically married to, did marriage fraud with her brother and lied about who he was, about her relationship to him, to get him a green card. While she's still boinking her actual.
So to be clear, though, right? Just to be clear, I think this is pure fraud. I don't think that there was any sexual relationship between her and her brother. It was just pure paperwork to get him into the country. Yusuf says Ilan Omar is beyond first cousin marriage. She sees first cousin marriage and she says, "Hold my beer. I'll give you one better. Marry my brother."
Based?
All right. Like I said, though, I don't think there was actually any sexual relationship between them. I don't know that for a fact, but I think probably there wasn't.
Know them, that your children will grow up surrounded by loving family. For some, it's not even a choice, it's just what's done. But tradition alone doesn't make something safe. And what does the science reveal? It's worse than almost anyone imagined. First cousins share about 12.5% of their DNA. That might sound small, but genetically, it's a loaded gun. We all carry hidden mutations, recessive genes that don't affect us, because we only have one faulty copy. But when two cousins marry, the odds that they both carry the same recessive mutation skyrocket. And if both parents pass that defective gene to their child, the child gets a double dose. That's when genetic disease strikes. The numbers are brutal. Children born to first cousin parents face roughly double the risk of birth defects compared to children of unrelated parents. In absolute terms.
And that makes sense, because if you get 12% of you have 12% of the genes in common, you get half of those from each, right? So you get two sets of 6. And I mean, 6% of the time, the recessive gene is going to manifest, whereas the recessive gene will only rarely by chance manifest otherwise, because you'd marry someone who might also have the recessive gene and be a carrier for it, unknowing to you. So it makes sense that it would be a much higher rate of these rare recessive genes. Of course, there are recessive genes that are very common. Lots of things are controlled by recessive genes, things like eye color and hair color or whatever. That's not what we're talking about. Of course, those genes are prevalent. We're talking about rare recessive genes that only manifest when you have two copies. Almost all negative genes are recessive, because dominant genes get selected out. Usually, there's exceptions, right? There are exceptions.
Yeah. Well, there are a bunch that kill you pretty quickly.
Exactly.
That are dominant.
Right. So the dominant genes, they get selected against. So they're super, super rare for the most part. I mean, if they're bad enough. So there are some, like ones that don't take effect until after your reproductive age, that don't get selected against. But for the most part, the dominant genes kill you before you can reproduce. They get selected against for obvious reasons, and thus they only reoccur as random mutations, one in 100 million chance or something, right? Super, super rare.
terms, the general population has about 2 to 3% chance of a serious congenital disorder. For cousin couples, that jumps to between 4 and 6%. It doesn't sound like much until you multiply it across millions of marriages. Then it becomes a public health catastrophe. And it gets worse with each generation. When cousin marriage happens repeatedly over decades, grandparents who were cousins, parents who were cousins, now you are marrying a cousin. The risk compounds. Rare genetic syndromes that normally appear once in a million births suddenly cluster in specific families. In Saudi Arabia, geneticists have cataloged over 1,000 recessive diseases in the population, many concentrated in tribal bloodlines that intermarry generation after generation. Let's talk specifics. In the UK, British Pakistanis make up just 3.4% of all births, but they account for 30% of children born with recessive genetics.
All right, there we go.
Look at those numbers on your screen.
Yeah.
And again, Pakistan's #1 in the world. They're the world champions at this. So it would be slightly less among other Muslim populations because, you had 64% versus 50% or 40% in some countries. Nonetheless, that's going to be way, way higher than the overall rate. So you see the effect, right? Because if it was just the very first cousin marriage, it'd just be double. It'd just be, 6.8%. But you see the effect of going generation after generation after generation, these recessive genes build up, and you got 30% of the genetic disorders in the United Kingdom coming from the Pakistani population, which is 3.5% of the UK population. See the effects. Sadly, Tawhid Islam isn't here anymore, or I'd ask him to comment on this. Super rare, 30% of the
30% of, well, not 30% of the children, but 30% of the cases. So 10 times the likelihood of cases compared to others. And could you make Yosef Assyrian mod on the channel?
Sure. He wants to post a link or something.
Also, again, we have a spectacular display of IQ depression here from Uzair the Muslim, who desperately wants to argue about how Allah is absolutely unlike anything in creation and cannot be compared or exemplify anything that is in creation. Creation can't exemplify any trait that Allah has. And when pointed out that his Allah cannot have knowledge, power, seeing, knowing, anything like that, his Allah cannot have knowledge. It is impossible. It's like, oh, well, his knowledge is like complete and perfect. I'm like, okay, so his hands are complete and perfect. So if he has perfect knowledge, he has perfect hands. You cannot go and pick and choose how you're going to interpret these different things if you are asserting both real knowledge and real hands of your Allah. That is not metaphor. So his Allah necessarily either has no knowledge and no hands, because hands are, and so any statement of knowledge and hands that you have to make doesn't actually mean anything, has no meaning, or Allah has hands that are more perfect than our hands and knowledge that's more perfect than our knowledge. This is the incoherence of the Salafi. And we are mocking the parents who are making these choices. We are emphasizing how evil it is that this is a pattern in society. We are emphasizing how horrific the impact is for this in society. A child is innocent until they grow up and do the same thing. They're not innocent when they do the same thing. They are responsible.
Yeah, exactly. I understand that it can come off that way, but really we're mocking the practice. Well, mostly we're looking at the numbers, but to the extent we're mocking the practice and the people who do it, but not the children born, right? Not the people born with genetic defects. They deserve absolutely no mockery, unless of course they grow up and then they persist to do the same thing. So I understand it's a fine line, but that is absolutely where the intention is to criticize and make fun of the practice, and to a small degree the specific people who do it. But we're not really looking at specific people, we're just looking at numbers, and certainly not the victims, right? Certainly not the people born into such situations.
And now Uzair has decided to move on to stop lying about his fake god, to begin lying about Al-Zut, claiming that these hadith are da'if. They are not da'if. Many of them are sahih, which means that when Muslims call in to their sheikhs in the Middle East, speaking in Arabic, asking them what happened, their sheikhs don't say, oh, it's da'if, it didn't happen. And he knows this. So he came here to lie and claim it's da'if when he knows.
Well, besides that, he's off topic.
He's off topic.
Timeout, perfectly fine. You seem to have already given him a timeout, which is fine.
He's done for today.
There, stay on topic. We want to hear about the beauty of cousin marriages today. We don't want to hear about your prophet's gay sex with the men of Al-Zut. Thank you very much. We want to stick to the subject. Let me take a couple of super chats before we continue from Pants Schmantz.
Every single person that donates, inshallah, you're going to get a reward. You know what? Forget donate. Invest. You invest in your hereafter. Forgive me for pranking you guys, but I had to. Yeah, I'm the king of clickbait. Goodbye.
Solid investment choices there, Mr. Pants. Or I guess I should say Mr. Schmantz. Anyway, John 9:41. With some edits, Jesus said, if you were low IQ, you would not be guilty of sin. But now that you claim genius status, your guilt remains. Indeed. Again, children are innocent until they do the same practice. The Daniels go around and say, this is awesome. This is awesome. I'm the victim of I'm the blessed recipient of cousin marriage myself. And I have very low IQ. This is awesome. That makes me a better Muslim. I don't actually think Daniel's low IQ, but he certainly lacks common sense. Let's put it that way. And from Christian Gadfly.
If you want your wealth to increase in this dunya, then give sadaqah more and more. Every single day, 2 angels come down. One of them is making dua for those who give. He says, Ya Allah, give those who give.
Angels are watching you, Mr. Christian Gadfly. Are the angels watching your recent videos? Check out his channel if you haven't already. Use this to buy pepper spray for any Al-Zut that show up. I don't think we're having too much danger of Al-Zut, but maybe people might be Muslims who want to talk about Al-Zut. We can use the pepper spray on them and send them to time out. I'm going to address this really quick from HM Fogu. Why the hell do we let them live here again?
Because we're stupid.
Well, this isn't a political statement, right? I'm not saying what proper immigration policy should or shouldn't be. I will say that the problem's going to exist either way, though. That the problem of cousin marriage is going to exist whether or not you allow immigration. And as Christians, we should care about all people. We should care about people in Pakistan, whether or not they immigrate to our country. And so we're fighting against this because it is wrong. And that is not a political statement. It's wrong either way. All right, let's continue the video.
Disorders. 30%. That's not a slight overrepresentation. That's a crisis.
Indeed.
In Bradford, where 3/4 of the Pakistani community marries first cousins, the numbers are even more staggering. Somewhere between 4%.
Hey, Yasser Qadi was proven correct in the video that is known for him saying that the hadith are unreliable. He said that in many ways, the United Kingdom is more Islamic than the Muslim world. And you got 75% there, 75%. They're beating out even Pakistan.
Crazy.
10% of children born to cousin parents have genetic abnormalities.
And keep in
1/3
mind,
of those
I
children
just want to
die
be
before
clear. This is because they keep repeatedly doing it, because they are more closely related many times than actual siblings.
Yeah.
They keep
4 to
doing this,
10%.
and they create this over and over and over and over again. So,
Yeah, so keep in mind, these are genetic conditions that affect, I mean, obviously it varies, the exact rate varies, but many of these are like 1 in 10,000, 1 in 100,000 of the general population. And it's 4 to 10% of this particular community in the United Kingdom of children who are affected. Well, I guess this is probably among the 75%.
yes.
Probably the adder 25 is excluded, but not a big difference when
Oh.
we're talking about 75. Anyway.
The AI script is killing me, though. The AI script is truly killing me.
Yeah.
Like this has been a lot of this animation has been done by hand. I don't know why they went with an AI generated script. It is painful.
You don't like the script or just the narration? Because the narration is AI.
No, the script itself is also AI. They entered in bullet points that they wanted it to cover, and then they took the script and generated from it. This is an AI generated script. One of the ways you can tell is that AI can't go 2 minutes without saying, not this, but that. Not only this, but that. Like,
Okay. I was just clarifying. I do agree that the script sounds very formulaic, which would indicate that there's a very high probability that it was generated by AI, or at least
it's 100%.
It could have been refined, but at least aided by AI.
Yeah. What they did is that they made bullet points, because the information here is accurate. They took bullet points and they told it to generate a script from the bullet points they'd fed it. And then they went to all the trouble of doing these accurate visuals, but apparently they're not very good writers, and they thought this was better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the person behind this channel. They might not be a native English speaker, or they might be not confident in their own writing for other reasons, but I would encourage people to do their own writing. I like I said, I think that the information is very good, and the production value is definitely very high on this, and I think it's worthwhile watching. But it would be better if it actually had that personal touch of being written by a human being. Anyway, 4 to 10% of children, I think among the 75% in this community, but either way, in this specific community, are born with genetic defects, and 33% of those genetic defects lead directly to death. Child mortality, okay, so let's just say 6, right? Somewhere in between 4 and 10, a third of that. So 2% of the children born in this community are dying as children of genetic defects. That is an extremely high number compared to any other group.
Well, I mean, they're saying that that's the percentage of children who have genetic defects who die.
Yeah, I know. So I took 6 and took a third of that, 2%.
Their 5th birthday. The diseases read like a medical horror catalog. Thalassemia, a blood disorder requiring lifelong transfusions. Sickle cell anemia, metabolic disorders where the body can't break down proteins or fats, leading to organ failure. Congenital heart defects, spina bifida, blindness, deafness, cerebral palsy. In places like Bradford and Birmingham, pediatricians report seeing genetic conditions they used to only read about in textbooks.
Oh no, it's worse than that.
They're so rare that Western medical schools.
It's worse than that. There are undocumented genetic disorders.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would assume that these communities are probably also pretty distrustful of the British medical community, and so probably the numbers are severely underreported.
Oh, no, they use it because they get their crazy checks. They get their welfare. Your kid gets diagnosed. And
okay, well, I'm not that familiar
with
the system. So.
No, they're heavily diagnosed. They get their special services in school, and they get their welfare. So they're getting all their kids diagnosed. But the thing is, a lot of these diseases, like some of them, are diseases that are kicking around in society as a whole already. They aren't new diseases, but they're very, very rare in wider society because you don't encounter someone with this recessive gene very often at all. until you have these cousin marriages. But in some of these, they are new mutations that would have just sort of filtered out and disappeared, and nobody ever would have even known that they could be a problem until you get 2 copies.
As Arlette said, there's new genetic mutations from all this popping up too. Now, strictly speaking, the genetic mutation wouldn't be caused by cousin marriage, but the problem is once it's there, right? So let's say it's a completely novel mutation, right? Well, now your descendants get that, which is no big deal if they're not marrying anyone closely related. It might take 1,000 years or something before 2 people with that new genetic mutation breed. But now you're marrying a cousin, so you already got a 12% chance of you both having that, which would mean then 6% that the child would get it. So pretty crazy stuff.
Yep. And like I said, it's when there are stereotypes about people inbreeding in the backwoods of wherever, it's very rare that that's the case. But with the blue Fugits, I don't even know how you pronounce their last name, the blue people of Kentucky, they did have incestuous type marriages of people who were nephews and cousins, like nephews a little bit removed and cousins a little bit removed through that spread their genetic disorder. And then it became something that was embedded in the small population as a result of this initial very large family that had some inbreeding that caused it to pop up for the first few times, and then the continuous breeding in this small population. Yeah.
That's the last thing you would ever want to show anybody.
Schools barely covered them are now showing up weekly in UK hospitals because entire neighborhoods are genetically intertwined. Saudi Arabia, similar story. Studies show that between 84 and 97% of autosomal recessive disorders in the kingdom occur in children from consanguineous marriages. Virtually every kid with a certain class of genetic disease has cousins.
So that same idea, but looking at it from the other end, right? So we saw that the general population compared to the cousin marriage population and how it was like 8-9 times more likely. Now you're looking at what percentage, and they said between 84 and 97% of people with these recessive genetic conditions are children of cousin marriages. So almost all of the cases, in other words, are coming from cousin marriages, which represent, if I remember right, 54%, something like that, of Saudi Arabia marriages. 56. So half, just say half, but almost all of the genetic conditions are coming from those half and not the other half of the population. And even that other half is probably, has cousin marriage in their ancestry and thus are more closely related than 2 random people in the West.
And parents. The healthcare costs are staggering. Treating a single child with a severe recessive disorder can run upwards of £250,000 per year. When you factor in specialized care, medications, surgeries, and lifelong support. And behind every percentage point,
not a political statement, but paid for by your tax dollars in the UK. Just pointing that out.
Statistic, every hospital bed is a family that will never be the same. In a modest, terraced house in Bradford, England, Sada and Jalil Akhtar wake up every morning to a nightmare they can't escape. They're first cousins. They have 6 children. 3 of them, Moshin, Ina, and Zanab, were born with mucolipidosis type 4, a devastating genetic disorder that stops the body from clearing cellular waste. It attacks the brain, vision, and motor control. Mosin is 17 now. He should be thinking about college, girls, driving lessons. Instead, he's blind, completely. He wanders through the house aimlessly, often crying out in frustration because his mind is trapped in a body that won't obey. He's obsessed with toy cars. He clutches them constantly, but he can't see them. Mentally, he functions at the level of a toddler. His sisters, Ina and Zanib, 13 and 11, lie in their beds most days. They're also blind. They can't walk. They can't speak. They need to be fed through tubes, changed like infants. watched around the clock. Saida is worn down to the bone. Years of round-the-clock care have hollowed her out. She spoon-feeds them, dresses them, comforts them when they cry, and they cry often, because they can't understand why they're trapped in darkness. The family's youngest daughter, Fatima, is healthy. She watches her siblings with quiet sorrow and says the hardest part is when they are crying, and we can't stop them crying. And here's the gut
By the
punch.
way, a couple people misunderstood the word terrace, a terraced house, not a terrorist house. So in the UK, a row house or a townhouse is called what we call, they will get offended. They'll be like, that's not a townhouse, but what we call a townhouse is called a terraced house there.
Yeah, he wasn't calling them terrorists, okay? The guy who made this video is not that insensitive. He's not saying that these people with 3 disabled children are terrorists. He was saying that they live in a particular type of house. That's funny. Good thing you caught that. I saw the comment, but I'm like, what is that about? I don't know. All right, but obviously this family got somewhat unlucky that 3 of their 4 children were born with the genetic condition, but the fact that the parents are first cousins made that a possibility, right? If they weren't first cousins, it probably wouldn't have even been possible for them to be born with this particular genetic defect, because they both are carriers of it, and they inherited it from the same grandparents, probably. Well, no, definitely. They inherited it from the same grandparents. Now they got unlucky, and all 3 of their 4 kids are. By chance, it should have been 1 out of 4. So they did get slightly unlucky, but still 1 out of 4 would be really bad when it should be 0%. And yeah, as you hear, this is real, right? This is real. It's not just, hypothetical or making fun of Daniel and low IQs and stuff like that. It's very real. The human cost here, both for the children who are born with this condition and having to live this way, and for the parents who have to take care of them and will have to continue to take care of them, probably, right? They said the oldest was 17. He's not technically an adult yet, but when he's 30, they'll probably still have to take care of him because he'll never be able to function in society on his own.
Doctors explained to Saida and Jalil that their genetic relationship, first cousins, is the reason. Both carried the same recessive mutation.
To be clear, the people on the screen are definitely not the people who have these genetic conditions or whatever. These are probably stock footage, I would assume.
It's stock footage, and I've actually seen the documentary that talks about this particular family. It's a BBC documentary that has this particular family, so they didn't swipe the BBC footage. So these are they went to a stock video site for all of their video footage. So none of the images on here are of the people they are talking about. It's not AI generated. It is stock video, and they are selecting the stock videos to be illustrative of what they're trying to say.
Yeah, these are definitely not AI generated. These are definitely stock footage videos. So if you happen to see one of these people, don't be like, oh, I'm so sorry about your genetic condition, because they're just actors who were, like, this is just a medical scene here, right? This guy's not actually a doctor, for example.
Each of their children had a 25% chance of inheriting both copies.
Oh, there you go.
3 of 6 did. But even after seeing the evidence, even after genetic counseling, Jalil struggles to accept it. He points to his brother, also married to a cousin, whose kids are all healthy. All their kids are fine, he says, as if that erases the science. This is just fate, Allah's will.
Well, his cousin and him probably don't share the same recessive gene, or that you and your cousin do. Because not every kid gets it, right? Not every kid inherits it from the grandparents. But here you go. It's Allah's will. It had nothing to do with cousin marriage. Allah is just cursing me. That's how my God works. He just curses people for no reason, makes their kids disabled so that they have to struggle their entire lives taking care of I'll have to struggle my entire life taking care of my disabled children. It's just Allah's will, everyone. Nothing to see here. Again, shame that our Tawheed left. Because he'd be like, yeah, exactly. It's Allah's will. It has nothing to do with science.
At denial, it's everywhere. Asmat, another British Pakistani boy, seemed perfectly healthy until 15 months old. Then he stopped eating, became lethargic, stopped growing. His parents, also cousins, rushed him to the hospital, where doctors diagnosed him with propionic acidemia, a rare metabolic disorder. His body couldn't process proteins. Without an emergency liver transplant, he would have died. He got the transplant, becoming one of the youngest liver recipients in UK history. Now 17, Asmat survives, but barely. He takes...
That's it. I really hate to get into political statements, but that's a very strange thing to do, right? This guy has a genetic condition. This poor kid, right? Not follow his own, but he has a genetic condition that's going to destroy his liver, and you waste a liver transplant on this guy because it's the kinetic. The condition's going to
also
destroy.
Going to be destroyed.
Exactly. That's a very strange decision. And of course, this is all paid for by socialized medicine, so by tax dollars. I would have trouble justifying such a transplant if the parents were paying for it.
A parent might have donated part of their liver, in which case it would be fine.
Oh yeah,
it's a living
that's a good point.
transplant.
Yeah, that's a good point. It could have come. It probably did. It probably came from a family member, in which case then that at least makes sense as to why it was allowed to happen. But I still think it's a terrible idea. I at the risk of sounding very cruel here, I think they probably should have let the kid die. Yeah, exactly. It does get tricky. Ethics and morality get tricky here. Who do you save versus not save then? Yeah, I get it. I get it. If I sound like a monster, that's fine.
Oh, but this is the UK. The UK refuses to do surgeries on the hearts of newborns born with certain heart conditions. Where if the surgery is successful, the child is fine. But they will not do the surgery for the first year, even though the earlier you do it, the better outcome you have, because the surgery is expensive, and they just hope that most of the kids will die before they reach the age when they agree to do the surgery. In the US, the surgery is usually done like days after birth to correct it as soon as possible. And a lot of the kids, the vast majority, something like 90%, it's still like a terrible condition to have because like 10% of your kids die, but 90% survive in the US versus fewer than 10% in the UK because of this decision. So if we're talking about ethical decisions, even in clear-cut ones, they just kill kids in the UK. They kill kids all the time. They're shoving kids in baggies to keep them from dying because they don't give them proper neonatal care. So,
Lewis, you're wrong.
Yeah.
You said precariously preaching on the edge of eugenics. No. Refusing an exceptional intervention to save someone's life is not remotely the same thing as actively preventing people from breeding or actively killing or sterilizing people with genetic defects. That's not remotely the same thing. I think
no, it's not remotely the same thing, especially in the case of something that is scarce, like organs. So
I mean,
X number of organs, that's
exactly
the main issue that he's talking about, is that it's an organ transplant. So if the organs are, if you have 5 organs, 10 people who need them, the person who has a disease that will reoccur in that organ when you give them the new organ is unlikely to be rationally at the top of your list. So someone who is very, very elderly gets moved down. Someone who is otherwise has a poor quality of life and does not have the ability to live a normal life afterwards gets moved down. because there is a shortage.
Exactly. Mary
No, I
explained it much better.
absolutely do not
I
say that
apologize
it's
if
genetic
I wasn't
condition.
clear what I meant,
Yeah.
but I was specifically talking about an organ transplant, which, first of all, organ transplants have a very low success rate to begin with. Organs are very rare. There are
It has
10
a high
times as many
success rate
people wanting an
14
organ
years old.
donation as there are supply. And so you prioritize people who will get the most benefit out of it. And someone whose genetics will cause the organ to be destroyed isn't at the top of the list. I know that that's, it's not empathetic or whatever. It's very sterile look at things, but that's the reality of the situation. Not everyone who wants an organ transplant can get an organ transplant. And it makes more sense to prioritize someone who will get more benefit out of it.
Yeah,
Same idea. You wouldn't give an organ transplant to someone who's 65 years old, right?
Not that they do
wouldn't.
give organ transplants to people who are 65.
Well, I wouldn't.
And
I
otherwise,
wouldn't.
well, again, it depends on the organ and how many people are on.
Yeah, for sure.
So
supply and demand, but they wouldn't be at the top of the list, is what I meant to say.
Yeah, and if a person is very medically fragile, if a person already has extremely high infection rates, they're not going to end up on the top of the list. But that's why I said that this was probably a family donation, and that's probably the only way that a kid who's going down their liver's only going to last 5 years, and then they're going to die.
When Mary said it was probably a family donation, I agree. In which case, it is justified. I was just thinking about like the general, pool of organs, but that's probably not the case. All right. Man is getting dangerous. This talk is dangerous. No, there's nothing dangerous about talking about things. Right?
Oh, this one, by the way, I just looked it up. This one is one that can be managed if you eat the proper diet. So this is a condition. This might be a condition that is actually caught in the U.S. and not in the UK, because the U.S., you know how we scan, they do the little blood test and check the babies for all these metabolic diseases. They prick the baby's heel and check for all these metabolic diseases. That happened to your kid. Anyway, they include checking for incredibly rare diseases in the U.S., and there are always more that are being checked because the results of these particular diseases that they are screening for, they can go on special. The kids cannot eat like regular breast milk, or they will develop all kinds of horrible, not only will damage their body, but also cause permanent mental deficits. But if you catch it really early, put them on a super special diet, then most of that is mitigated. So in the UK, they don't screen for a huge number of these things. So they wait until the child is suffering horribly, and they're like, "Oh, look, the baby's sick." And by this time,
I wouldn't want to screen. In fairness, I don't think that it's probably a good use of resources to screen.
I think that we should, because
genetic conditions. Because the reason the reason people screen for genetic conditions is, in fact, to, as Delmy says, use as an argument for abortion.
Oh my gosh, Thaddeus! No, listen again. When your child is born.
When born, I know, but it's the same idea.
It is not the same idea at all. When your child is born, they take blood from the child's heel, screen for a bunch of conditions that can be devastating if not caught extremely early, but are treatable with special diets.
Is that normal practice?
Specifically doing that.
Is that normal practice? Because
yes,
it's not something I've heard of.
It's something that happened to your child, even if you didn't notice. Did you go back with your child every time they
that's fine.
Had a blood draw? I did not let my children have
if this is a condition, right? If this is a condition that can be managed completely with diet,
well, it's not managed completely. It's largely mitigated. So what?
Well, whatever. Either way, that diet makes a big difference, right? Diet makes
because the UK is a backward country and does not scan for these metabolic diseases by default. Children are not recognized until they already have really terrible effects, and so it could have been like a new liver, because on the new diet they wouldn't have those effects. But by this point, the child probably has permanent cognitive deficits because it wasn't screened for in the beginning. So
All right, so I want to address this from Dalmy Tree Cutter. Man, this is getting dangerous. This talk is dangerous. First of all, there's nothing dangerous about talking about things. All right, there's nothing dangerous with thinking things through and like trying to come to an intelligent decision about things. We are creatures of intellect. We have the ability to do so. But then he followed that up with people use this argument to talk about abortion. Okay, but you're just doing a slippery slope argument.
What are you
right?
talking about? When you are born, you already have a condition or
no,
not?
No, but he's saying that people use the same kind of language, right? So when I was saying that you should let the kid who has an incurable disease die rather than wasting an organ on him, he's saying like people would use the same argument of abortion. But see, it's a slippery slope fallacy, because just because something has some similarities doesn't mean it's the same thing. I'm not in any way suggesting that people should abort babies who will be born with genetic defects. Get a genetic test and be like, that baby's not good enough for me. I'm going to abort that baby and try for a different one. No, the two are not the same, right? Just because they have some similarity doesn't mean it's wrong to talk about both of them, for that matter, right? I can talk about both and say there are tough decisions that have to be made in a medical environment. And I obviously didn't have all the facts about this case. I apparently was wrong about this particular case. I acknowledge that. But there's a difference between talking about what to do medically in a specific situation. I'm just going to take this entirely away from children, right? Okay. So one thing that I personally feel is that we waste tons of resources on the last 6 months of life of old people. Why? Because we're scared of dying. Should we be scared of dying? Well, I mean, in a sense, but not really, because we should have our destiny sealed, right? We should be going to Christ when we die, and we shouldn't be spending millions of dollars to extend life by a few months at the end of life, which is the number one cost of the medical system in general, at least in the United States. I don't know about worldwide. That's not remotely the same thing as saying you should kill someone who has a terminal illness.
Well,
allowing someone to die naturally is not the same thing as saying we should prematurely terminate someone's life.
A good deal of that is actually because people are not having realistic conversations with patients about what people's potential outcomes are. So people are not typically spending enormous amounts of money on what they believe to be the last 6 months of one's life. They do not, whether or not it's children making the decision or parents and sometimes when children make the decision, they're making the decision out of guilt because they haven't had the conversation with their parents. So this is not like, oh, people are just trying not to die in the last 6 months and it's just futile. It's for nothing. So yeah,
I'm literally astounded by Thaddeus's ignorance. Well, you shouldn't be. Thaddeus is ignorant of many things. All people are ignorant of 99% of all knowledge. So because I didn't know about this specific genetic condition, I don't know why you'd be astounded.
Well, about all the metabolic conditions that they screen for and the fact
that
major fight.
I was ignorant of that too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I was
it's
ignorant
a major fight in the UK. So if you pick up a bottle of Coke, it will say on it contains phenylnure something chemia something. There's a special word for it because the most common metabolic condition is one that you can go food to food. You're not on a super special diet, but you can't drink certain things. So if you have a bottle of soda, look at it and it'll say contains something that starts with like a pH and U in it somewhere and about a specific condition. Thaddeus got trashed because it's common enough. But
see, here's the difference between me and a lot of people. A lot of people would have just made excuses. They would have tried to move on. They would have changed their position and claimed they always had a different position. I respond to evidence. I admit when I'm wrong, and I was wrong in this particular case. Okay.
Yeah,
it happens.
He didn't know about it. He didn't understand.
It's dangerous to talk about. Think if we hadn't talked about this, then I would have realized I was wrong. You see, talk is not dangerous.
So anyway, there's currently a huge fight in the UK because parents of children who were terribly damaged were very, very angry to find out that they could have been screened for these conditions and they could have avoided the vast majority, if not all, of the damage that their children and the suffering that their children underwent. So, In this particular case, this entire situation was brought on by cousin marriage. It is very rarely, but occasionally exists in other children. If they had had proper screening and put this child on a very special diet from the beginning, most of this could have been covered. So,
all right, we got this case covered, okay, guys.
We got this case covered. We understand now. So, yeah, I had to look it up to find out what
the real point is
actual disease,
right? That he only has this condition to begin with because of cousin marriage, and there's a very real cost. And if he wasn't in the UK or the United States or another Western country, he would have just died. Right? He would have just died because they wouldn't have had the medical resources to figure it out, let alone give him a liver transplant. And this is the consequence of Allah and Muhammad and what they have encouraged over the years. AW says, can you do a stream on halal organ transplant industry? That would be an interesting stream. Maybe I'll find a video.
Oh, that's dark
to react to.
That's very dark.
Yeah, so, short version here, right? Short version here is that there is a market in primarily Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states to buy organs from Uyghur people who have been killed in Chinese persecution of them. It exists. They want the Muslim organs because they're halal and not the kafir organs. And that's one of many reasons, but they don't speak out against Chinese persecution of Muslims. Very strange stuff. And very dark, as Mary said. Yeah, well, I can consider doing a stream of that. And Delmy said, I'd rather die than be on immunosuppressive pills for the rest of my life. I want to depart this world anyways and be with my Jesus and my child that is there and with him and all the saints. I kind of have a similar attitude. Maybe that's part of the reason why I sound so insensitive. But I don't see the point of extending life if that extension is just for you to suffer more. And why am I extending life indefinitely for just to suffer when the natural course of action without my intervention would be for me to die? I'm not saying anyone should be ending their life early. I'm not saying anyone should be ending a unborn baby's life early. I'm saying that I see a good argument for allowing the natural course of things to take place rather than extending someone's suffering. And you can disagree.
That is a certain case, though. Suffering, how much suffering is suffering? And life itself has a certain level of suffering.
And I'm only making to be clear, I'm only making the choice for myself, right? I'm not
right.
I'm not saying that there should be any government telling you what to do.
And I've had the same discussion with my parents, like at what time would they want to be in supportive care? At what stage, what kind of thing? Because I've had this talk because my family is from a medical background. My own grandmother could have had a futile medical intervention that would have made her extended her life at most weeks and would have made it, if she was even conscious for the rest of it, just a horrific experience for her if she was conscious, that we chose not to take. And it would not, she could not have even had another year. It was not possible at this point. And so that's the kind of decision. And, we're very happy with that decision and a lot of people look back on decisions that they made and they're unhappy with it because it ended up being, well, we did this to them for what? But on the other hand, people say, oh, I would never want to live my life as a cripple. I would never take be a quadriplegic or a paraplegic. I'd never want that whenever. And reality, that is some level of bigotry that they have toward what that life would be. Like, I would find certain disabilities very, very difficult to live with, but which one, at what point would it be this kind of negative sort of thing? So I see that we now have Junior with a V fan club. Very nice.
Yes.
Very nice. And then where did she do it? Louisa put up the correct term, phenylketonuria. So, and then urea.
One second, I can put that up on the screen. There you go.
Yep. And so they say, if you look at a bottle of soda, it'll say that phenylketonuria can't have it or something like that. It has some slightly contains phenylketo something, and you can't, and you shouldn't drink it if you have this condition. That's the most common one. So that's the only one I knew of by name. I didn't know any of these others by name.
Yeah. So to be clear, right?
Poorly by name. I could recognize it.
Yeah. So to be clear, these are difficult issues. They're not cut and dry. Obviously, if you can have a procedure that will give you 20 years of good life, that's probably something you should do. If you have a procedure that will extend your life by a couple weeks, that's probably something you should not do. My opinion. But
again, it depends on the procedure. I mean, is the procedure like changing out your catheter?
Right. For sure. I meant like, a new invasive procedure. Anyway, complicated, subjective, and very personal. Everyone should have all the information and the choice.
But what?
And I'm only telling you what my choice is. Okay, I'm not saying what anyone should be forced to do the same choice as me.
And what choice should not be on the table is assisted suicide chosen either for someone else or for oneself. So that should not be on the table.
Yeah, I'm only talking about allowing yourself to, quote unquote, allowing yourself to die naturally. I'm not talking about suicide or assisted suicide. All right, let's get back to the video. That was a long distraction. It was all my fault because I had to make a stupid comment. And
there you go.
Had to correct me.
Dozens of he got the transplant, becoming one of the youngest liver recipients in UK history. Now 17, Asmat survives, but barely. He takes dozens of medications daily. His right arm is visibly smaller than his left. He suffers chronic pain and muscle cramps. He's developmentally delayed. His mother, Parveen, recalls the terror of nearly losing her baby. She says Dr.
That was kind of funny. That was clearly just like a kid acting that he was waking up, and they slowed it down to make it look like he was in pain. That was funny. So
it's hard to find. Stock footage
for sure.
Doctors told her that marrying her cousin greatly increased the risk. She loves her son fiercely, but she admits she was too scared to have more children. Yet, in the same breath, she adds, I don't think there's anything wrong with first cousin marriages. It's our culture, a norm, really. It's a 1 in 4 chance, but 3 could be okay.
So she acknowledges 1 in 4 chance that her child will be born with a horrible genetic condition. But hey, that's only 1 out of 4. I like those odds. 3 out of 4 kids will be good.
And then, well, here's the thing. This is gambler logic. I've already had my one who's disabled, so now I have better odds.
They did say that she was afraid to have more kids. So what she's saying is she personally didn't want to have any more kids because she was afraid that they might be born with the same condition. But she's saying, cousin marriage isn't the problem. It was only 1 out of 4 chance. I just got unlucky. Crazy. Yeah, it would have been 0% without the cousin marriage. Yeah, it seems to be an AI narrator.
It's AI narrated, and the script's phrasing is AI generated.
But as near as I can tell, all of the editing is done by human beings, and there's certainly real stock footage clips. They're not AI generated. So, again, I'm not endorsing the channel. I just think the information is very valuable and worthy of being discussed.
Okay, that's the cognitive dissonance that defines this crisis. Families know the risk intellectually, but emotionally, culturally, they can't let go. In a rural Pakistani village, one man lost 5 children in infancy. Another child was born deaf. Same genetic curse running through the family bloodline. But when asked, he simply shrugs. Fate, he says. Genetic counseling doesn't exist there. Testing, unheard of. In the Gulf states, pediatric wards over...
And we've seen this a couple times now, right? It's fate. It's what Allah's will, etc. And this is baked into Islam, that everything that happens, right? Even though most Muslims today will probably affirm that they have free will or what, and they're responsible for their actions, blah, blah, blah. It's baked into Islam that Allah has foreordained everything that happens, that every little thing is predetermined for you. You can't really know if you're going to heaven or not. You might look like you are, but Allah's decree was for you to live as a Muslim for 80 years and then forsake him in the last month of your life, or vice versa. That everything's just fate, right? It's just fate. You just go along and you let happen to you.
They can't get, whenever the U.S. forces were in Iraq, they couldn't get the Iraqi allied forces to wear bulletproof vests. Because, Allah wills, I'll die. Allah wills, I won't die. It would make a difference. Like, that's the level of and it does come from Muhammad's teaching. Like, Muhammad's teaching about coitus interruptus. Well, if Allah wants it to happen, it will happen no matter what. You can't affect it. So, whether or not you have a baby, whether or not you get shot by a bullet, whether or not you have disabled kids, can't do it.
So I want to clarify here. Houston says odds increase above 1 in 4 because of consecutive generations of marriage. No, the maximum odds of getting a recessive gene is going to be 1 in 4. Correct. So if both parents have the recessive gene, then there'll be a 1 in 4 chance that the kid also has it, because you need 2 copies. You got 50-50 chance of the dominant gene from each parent. You need 2 recessive, 1 out of 4 chance that the child gets it. But that's only one particular genetic condition. If you have, 10 different recessive genes that you share in common with your cousin, then you're in big, big trouble, because you're going to get one of those almost certainly, right? Because you'll have a 1 in 4 chance of getting each of those genetic conditions. So any particular condition can never get above 25% if it's recessive, but you can have, dozens of these recessive genes potentially that you share in common with a cousin.
Flow with thalassemia cases, kids needing blood transfusions every few weeks just to survive, heart defects requiring open heart surgery in infancy, neurological conditions leaving children vegetative. One Dubai genetics center reported that Arabs have some of the world's highest rates of novel rare disorders, with 2/3 linked to consanguinity. And the cost is...
So again, this is looking at the other side of the equation. So of those who have rare conditions, 2/3 are directly linked to cousin marriages. And, some percentage could be indirectly linked as well, but 2/3 directly linked to cousin.
Yeah. And that would be all, if that's all genetic disorders, and that would include dominant ones, that is not going to be affected that much unless you get a double dose, which would really suck, but is not generally affected by incestuous marriage.
Yes. And it could be all. I mean, the video just says rare genetic condition, so that could include dominant for sure.
Isn't just emotional. Financially, these families are buried. Caring for a single disabled child, special education, medical equipment, medications, surgeries, lifelong support can be staggeringly expensive. Multiply that across countless families, the systems buckle. So, if the risks are this catastrophic, this well-documented, this undeniable, why does it keep happening? Because nobody will talk about it. Not honestly, not publicly.
True. Very true. The practice could easily be ended quickly with education. And if you convince families, again, you're going to have to overcome Allah's fate, though, right? Which is built in, and it's going to be a major inhibitor. But if you convince families that they're likely to have bad outcomes for their children if they marry a cousin, most people are going to stop marrying cousins. Just saying. It can easily be overcome if you talk about it.
And certainly not loudly. In the UK, politicians are terrified of this issue. In a country hyper-aware of racism and Islamophobia, raising the topic of cousin marriage in Muslim communities is political suicide. Only a handful of MPs have dared speak up. Ann Cryer, former MP for Kaylee, was one. In the early 2000s, she pointed to the skyrocketing rates of genetic disorders in Bradford's Pakistani community and called for public awareness campaigns. She was immediately attacked, called racist, called Islamophobic, accused of stigmatizing brown families. The backlash was so...
Notice the pattern here. All right. So unavoidable political statement here, but notice the pattern, right? You're racist because you want better outcomes for Muslim society. The person who wants them to continue marrying cousins and having all kinds of genetic defects, they're not racist at all. You're racist because you point out a problem and say, let's do something to address this problem. Got it. Good politics, but it's not wrong. Right? It's not wrong, right? You will be called a racist. I bet you that I will get comments on this video calling me a racist for making this video. But it's just numbers.
Yep. And
what you
it's
do
behavior.
with those numbers determines whether it's racist or not.
Yeah. And here's the thing. It's behavior. There's no race of incest. Race is
True.
the incest race. I mean, come on. Yeah, NHS would, there are some benefits to cousin marriage. Do you know what they said? It strengthens family ties, aka basically you keep the money in the family and maybe your woman won't be beaten as much.
Mm-hmm. Like I say, it's what you take and do with the information that would determine whether it's racist or not. If you go and say, everyone from Pakistan is a disgusting pervert. I hate you because you look like you're from Pakistan. Yeah, that would probably be racist. But if you say, there seems to be a problem in the Pakistani community, let's address that problem. I don't think that's racist. I think that is what a woke would call anti-racist, where you are trying to undo the effects of historical racism.
No. Anti-racism means that you make sure that the kids with the genetic disabilities get A's in all their best and all the classes.
I see.
That's anti-racism. Yeah. So you make the medical doctors, and then you go in, and the kid is walking around banging his head and holding onto his car, and then you can't complain because that would be racist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, call me crazy, but a lot of the things that are described, or a lot of the people who are vehemently opposed to racism, I think, almost everyone's actually opposed to racism, but most of the people who are like, you make it an issue and are constantly talking about it, are some of the most racist people on the planet.
Yeah.
Because they're like, that person looks different than me. I can't expect them to behave normally.
Yep.
That's a racist attitude.
Yep.
Right. I think that the Pakistani people of the United Kingdom and everywhere else are perfectly capable of functioning as normal members of society. But I'm the racist. I know. I'm very sorry of being so racist, of having expectations that all people should be responsible for their own actions.
So Junior with the V says, why talk about birth defects? The Dajjal will have only one eye. Are you saying that the Dajjal is a consequence of cousin marriage?
He might be.
There we go.
But remember, Muslims will, for some reason, be tricked by the Dajjal. He has one eye and the word kafir written on his head, but they're like, this seems like he might be the legitimate guy.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue.
So fierce that most of her colleagues learned the lesson. Stay quiet. And they have. Even in 2024, when Conservative MP Richard Holden introduced a bill to ban first cousin marriage in the UK. Prime Minister Keir Starmer blocked it. Opposition MP Iqbal Mohammed argued the practice shouldn't be stigmatized and instead encouraged genetic screening.
Iqbal Mohammed. I wonder what religion he might be in.
For couples. The bill died. Cousin marriage remains fully legal in the UK, as it is across Europe.
So that guy, who's presumably of a Muslim background, he's a racist against Muslims because he's
no. He's the one who says that it shouldn't be discouraged. That cousin marriage is great. That guy was pro cousin marriage.
I thought that he was saying the screening shouldn't be discouraged.
No. What he said was cousin marriage is fantastic. We shouldn't discourage.
Oh, he was
marriage.
speaking against the bill. Well, the fact that they say it was
we should
opposition,
just have genetic screening to deal with the consequences rather than just discourage the practice.
I'll double check, but you're probably right. I got confused though because it was said opposition and the majority was against the bill, so that's why I got confused. But let me just double check.
Across the bend instead, and first cousin marriage in the UK. Prime Minister Keir Starmer blocked it. Opposition MP Iqbal Mohammed argued the practice shouldn't be stigmatized and instead encouraged genetic screening for couples.
You're right. The practice that shouldn't be stigmatized is cousin marriage. So what he's saying is that they should have genetic screening before they get married so they know what genetic conditions their kids might have. Or okay.
That would not stop them from getting married anyway, because why? Because they think that a law will determine it anyway. So
all right. Yeah, so Iqbal Muhammad, cousin marriage is awesome as long as you have genetic screening and you know that you have a 1 out of 4 chance of having this genetic condition. Okay.
Yeah.
So he didn't say encourage. He didn't say encourage. He said not discourage, which is not quite the same thing. But either way, he says they cousin marriage is just fine. Let's just add some genetic screening.
Frog Dog says his name is IQ Ball. He must be smart.
Oh, he needs an A in there. Then he could be the IQ Baal.
There we go.
Cousin marriage remains fully legal in the UK, as it is across Europe, across the Middle East, across South Asia. No Muslim majority country bans it. None. Meanwhile, doctors in the NHS are pressured to tread carefully. Some have been told not to single out Pakistani families in public health messaging, even though the data is crystal clear. A 2022 briefing from Bradford health officials described cousin marriage as a cultural practice and compared it to white women having children after age 34, as if those risks are remotely equivalent. The document framed both as personal.
Oh my gosh. Yes, the narrator was 100% correct there. He needed some additional sarcasm, which I'm not going to get from the AI voice, but there. Oh, yeah, it's totally the same thing. Yeah, recessive genes and the slight health risks of having a baby after age 34 are totally the same thing.
You know, there are other things that can cause. You can get fatty liver syndrome from alcohol. You can also get it from obesity. So we shouldn't tell people they shouldn't be alcoholics because it could be because you're fat. We shouldn't tell people they shouldn't drink too much because other people can get this too. Right. If they have severe obesity.
Classic tu quoque fallacy, right? Well, cousin marriage isn't bad because other things also cause birth defects. Cousin marriage is just fine because if you're a drunkard your entire pregnancy, there's a good chance the child will be born with some disabilities. Okay. Noted. I had 2 of my 4 children after age 34. I don't know why that of all things, right? Well, I guess they wanted to.
Geriatric pregnancy is considered age 35 and above. The risks of having de novo birth defects increase slowly from like 20 onward, but the curve goes up after 35, but it still doesn't approach the risk of these folks in the cousin marriages.
Well, and it's not the same.
If you even jump to over 40 live births, you will have fewer risks than a 20-year-old cousin married Pakistani.
Uh-huh. And you could have a child after age 35 in a cousin marriage as well. Just multiply those risks. So it's totally
Yeah, you can have
weird.
both. You can have both. So
Yeah.
yes, you can be fine. It's just the risks do increase as you get older.
Yeah. I mean, the
and it's
risks
just-
are
it's just a fact of
increasing,
life.
including the risks of health of the mother, right? It's not just the child.
It
In this
depends on
case-
how many kids you've had before, so and what their spacing is. So if you are getting pregnant for the first time after the age of 35, it is several times more dangerous than if you're continuing to have kids after
Yeah, that makes sense.
35. It's just
Jack Ray says, wait a minute. Did anyone notice the racism and the comparison of cousin marriage to white women as an opposed point? Yeah, that's a good point there, right? Well, cousin marriage is the same thing as white women having children after 35.
Yeah. And
Why
here's
wasn't
the
it just
thing-
women in general? I wonder.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing as well, that there is no further risk to children after they are born without any, like, you're not an extra carrier of something because your parents were older. Whereas with the cousin marriage, half your kids are going to be carriers of these diseases. If you're both carriers, half your kids are also going to be carriers. So half your kids, you have the risks continuing generation after generation.
AHB spoke. My youngest son was born to my wife and I at 39. I wouldn't say he's defective completely nuts. I do want to clarify something. I'm using the term birth defect because, that's the normal term. But I actually don't think that I don't think it's fair to say that a kid with a genetic condition is defective, right? I think that is completely
Birth defect
inappropriate.
is usually a disorder of development, whereas a
Right.
genetic abnormality is usually not called birth defect at all. But anyway,
Right. But either way, what I'm saying is, I wouldn't use the term to describe the child, right? I wouldn't say that child is defective, and that's not what AHB spoke was saying at all. But I want to take the opportunity to say the child is still valuable, right? That the child is still of intrinsic value. It has inherent worth as a human being. I wouldn't use the term defective to describe the child, but I don't have a better term to use, and everyone understands what the term means, so I use the term.
Their hugely increased risks only amount to up to 1% by age 40.
There you go.
Versus when we're talking about 25% and people who are carriers of both, and a starting risk of the recessive disabilities overall of being, what was it, 3.4% is your starting point. So
no,
your
3.4.
starting point
3.4 was the percentage of the population. It was 4 to 6, I think. 4 to 6.
Yeah, your starting point ended up being enormously more perilous, even without a confirmed double recessive, much less with it.
Yep. 1 in 100 is like 1 in 4, says Frog 1. And yes, Mary is more eloquent than Thad today, and most days for that. I'm not very good at this. I trip over my words all the time. You see?
You see, this is the proof. This is the proof.
But we continue on anyway.
Choices influenced by liberal values like careers and fitness. It's the kind of bureaucratic language designed to avoid offending anyone, while children continue to suffer. Religious leaders aren't helping either. Popular Islamic preacher Dr. Zakir Naik has publicly claimed that the risks of cousin marriage are negligible.
Zakir Naik, everyone.
Yep.
There's your AI for sure not knowing how to pronounce it. Anyway, Zakir Naik's great evidence, right? Great evidence on the benefit of child or of cousin marriage.
You want to prove the Quran wrong? It is very easy. You try it out.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Dismissing genetic science in favor of cultural tradition. In Pakistan,
Oh,
the imam
yeah,
tells
he did.
families
He
that
does hold that it's, oh, I'm a medical doctor. It is a very, very small risk. Benefits outweigh the risks. It's not a small risk.
I thought
It's
we'd get
an
a quote, but we
unnecessary
didn't,
risk.
sadly. But perfect opportunity for this super chat.
Did someone ask for a medical doctor?
Very nice.
Indeed. Indeed. Thank you very much. Songs of relief for that. And I'll take one other as well from Yusuf. Maybe.
We're asking you to give a loan to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and believe me, that will be paid back in ways you can never imagine.
Who is it that would loan Allah a goodly loan so he may multiply it for him many times over?
Allahu Akbar. I love that verse. Every time we donate to projects, we're giving a loan to our Creator, the most generous, who will return it to us in this life.
Brothers and sisters, can you afford to miss out on this opportunity?
Yusuf says, God bless you guys. Thank you very much for the donation. And thank you for not missing out on that opportunity there. Baz the Dark Horse, in quotes. I prefer low IQ countries. We have clearly a Daniel fan in the chat. Mary is like a skilled foil fencer, but with slam hedger force in conversation. There you go. We all know that Mary's the best.
Yeah.
Mary does have her own weaknesses, though.
Yes,
she does have her own
once
weaknesses.
my husband was very annoyed, I was annoyed at my husband. I said, I wish you'd stop being passive aggressive. And he said, I wish you'd stop being aggressive. Well, I blamed some of it on my genetic condition, which means I'm a terrible sprinter. And so because I can't sprint, there's no fight or flight. It's just fight or fight. So I got really good at turning around and clobbering people. So my flight reflex is very much dimmed. So even if someone was 5 years older than me, I'm taking them down one way or another. Got to figure out a way because I can't run. So
Carol B points out that Zakir Naik isn't really a medical doctor. I know he likes to say that. I could find zero evidence that he ever practiced medicine, and I don't see how he possibly could have. I assume, I can't even find any proof he has a degree. I assume that he at least has a degree in medicine. Indian equivalent of a undergraduate degree, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah, he did have a, it's reported that he has a bachelor's in medicine. It's reported that he has a bachelor's in medicine. But I don't know what that means in India.
Right. But I know that he couldn't have, I don't see how he could have possibly ever actually practiced medicine because he hooked up with DDOT at like age 20 or something. So when was he practicing medicine exactly? He went from like age 20-ish, getting trained by DDOT on how to do Dawa to doing Dawa full time. When did he ever practice medicine? I don't think he ever did. Like I'm going to assume for sake of argument, he does have a degree, but he never actually practiced. So he's never actually really a doctor.
disabled children are simply God's test, a trial of faith rather than a preventable outcome. One Saudi survey in 2024 found that 23% of respondents, nearly 1 in 4, didn't even recognize that cousin marriage.
24%, 24%.
This is obviously coincidence, but it is a little bit funny that 1 out of 4 roughly are victims of genetic recessive conditions from cousin marriage, and roughly 1 out of 4 have no idea that
have an idea, or that's
unaware.
Unaware.
So actually, this is far more disturbing, right? So I think it's funny that the coincidence, but it's far more disturbing because 77% of the population is aware of the risk, and more than half of people marry cousins anyway, which means a large percentage of the people marrying cousins are aware of the risk and they just don't care. That's pretty disturbing.
Carries elevated genetic risks. Among those who did know, many downplayed it. And the silence isn't just from outsiders afraid of offending Muslims. It's also from within the communities themselves. Families are trapped between love and loyalty, between honoring their elders and protecting their children. Speaking out against cousin marriage can mean family exile, accusations of betrayal, being labeled too Western. For many young women, especially refusing a cousin match isn't really an option. But the silence isn't just maintaining the problem. In some places, the system actually rewards it. In many Muslim-majority countries, inheritance laws favor family marriages.
So built into the legal system, we'll get to that in a second, but I want to take this question from Jack first. Mary might know better, but let me answer first. Do Muslims resort a lot of abortion for this? Is abortion on the rise in Muslim countries? So there is a disagreement within Islam as to whether abortion is allowed or not, but
no,
generally,
it's absolutely allowed.
Generally, it's considered allowed. Generally,
allowed.
It's considered.
Yeah, it's absolutely allowed. It's some disagreement.
At least early term
reasons you can have.
Maybe not. Yeah, maybe not late term, but to actually to matter for this, they'd have to do genetic testing, and I don't think that's occurring.
I think the rich people are. I think.
Yeah, you're right. You're probably right. The rich might be doing it. They might be doing genetic conditioning and, practicing eugenics and getting rid of the kids that are affected by the recessive genes before they're even born. Certainly a possibility. I don't have hard numbers on it. I just know that at least early term abortion is generally allowed in Islam. There might be some disagreement on late term because, at some point, like, what is it, day 45 or something, Allah is supposed to give the person a soul. So before day 45, there's really no disagreement.
No, 120.
120, day 120. Either way, I can't remember the number. So before day 120, it's not even a human according to Islam. So there you go. You can see why it would be allowed.
Your cousin ensures your father's wealth doesn't leave the extended family when you die. In Saudi Arabia and parts of the Gulf, this is explicit. Rich families openly strategize around keeping fortunes consolidated through relative marriages. The bride price, the money a groom's family pays to the bride's family, is typically half as expensive when marrying a cousin. For poor families, that alone can make cousin marriage the only financially viable option. Then there's transnational marriage. British Pakistanis, many of whom immigrated decades ago, frequently import spouses from Pakistan to maintain cultural ties with the homeland. And overwhelmingly, those imported spouses are cousins. Between 1992 and 1994, an estimated 57.6% of Pakistani marriages in Bradford involved a spouse brought over from Pakistan.
So we saw the number earlier that 75% of marriages, I don't remember for sure if it was Bradford, but I think it was, are cousin marriages. But more than half, right? More than half of the marriages are actually imported. So the UK law, I assume, I'm not an expert in UK law, but the UK law encouraging people to bring spouses from home so they get the same permanent residence or citizenship benefits is directly responsible for the cousin marriages taking place in Bradford. Because it's most of them, right? You only got 20%, 18% even, that are two people who are already in the UK. The rest are being imported specifically for marriage.
Yep. And Morkay was saying, wait, if you pay to marry your first cousin, you're kind of paying your uncle. Well, really, it's supposedly
Your
goes
brother,
to the wife,
actually,
but a
right?
lot of times you swap sisters and you pay each other and it balances out. So you're able to cancel it out. Basically, I pay you, you pay me back the same amount. Oh, look, there we go.
But it would typically be the parents paying. So it'd actually be brothers, right? That would be paying each other.
Yep. So I pay you for your daughter. You pay me for my daughter. And then we're even.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, also family discount.
50,000 Muslims in Bradford, according to census. Let's say 30,000 of marriageable age, 75% of those in cousin marriages. you got 22,000 cousin marriages in Bradford. If we're rough estimate doing the math, that's a lot of cousin marriages. Just saying. You can see why they might account for 30% of the genetic defects in the UK.
And just
In the late
pointing out, by the
1990s
way, there's no guarantee that you're going to have an equal number of boy cousins and girl cousins. So a lot of times whenever there isn't a cousin marriage, it's because they've run out of cousins of appropriate ages and sexes. That's when you're out of cousins, that is when you marry someone else. That is how endemic this is. Family discount. Yep. It's a family discount.
Brings different meaning to friends and family discount.
in Oxford, 92% of transnational marriages among British Pakistanis were to relatives.
Woof. Woof.
And that also gets them into the country, you know? How do you get the rest of your family into
like
the
I
country?
said, the law, the law is directly encouraging this. Only 8% are importing non-cousins or non-relatives, I guess, because they could be other relations that aren't technically cousins, but only 8% are importing brides that are not members of the family. 92% of these imported marriages that gets people into the country are relatives. Think about your policy, UK. Wow, indeed. Wow, indeed. How do you run out of cousins? I assume that's not a legitimate question.
37 of 50 being first cousins. Why? Partly cultural preservation. British Pakistani families fear their children will become too British, losing touch with language, religion, and tradition. Importing a cousin from the village reinforces the...
Hey, Daniel's right. If they stop cousin marriage, intelligence will rise, and then they'll stop being Muslim. They'll start being British.
Those ties. But there's also an immigration angle. Marrying a UK citizen grants a Pakistani spouse the right to live in Britain. For families in rural Pakistan struggling economically, having a daughter marry a British cousin is a golden ticket. It's not just a marriage, it's a migration pathway. And some families rely on this system, not despite the genetic risks, but simply because the economic pressures outweigh the health concerns. Women's autonomy plays a role too. In patriarchal kinship systems, women don't always have the power to refuse.
Understatement of the century.
Yeah. They don't always have the power to refuse.
And funnily enough, this is one thing in which they don't follow Muhammad because they force marriages all the time. Whereas if you went to Muhammad and you whined enough and you annoyed him enough, you could get a marriage that you didn't consent to canceled. If you consented to the marriage, too bad. But if you were forced into it and you were obnoxious enough, Muhammad would give up and give you what you wanted.
What a powerful answer.
Marriages are often women marrying down financially. The groom may be poorer than the bride's family, but it keeps her wealth within her birth family rather than transferring it to strangers. That's seen as protective, as a safety net, even if the biological cost is steep. And this isn't just a problem over there anymore. The ripple effects have reached the West. UK hospitals are overwhelmed. In Birmingham, entire genetics clinics are overloaded with cases from the Pakistani community, which makes up a small fraction of the city's population, but accounts for a disproportionate share of genetic disorders. Bradford's Born in Bradford study, one of the largest medical trials in the world, has been tracking over 13,000 children since 2007. The data is damning. Even after controlling for poverty and education, children of first cousins had an 11% probability of speech and language problems.
So you're seeing the direct effects here. So like specific genetic conditions are obvious enough. You can directly measure that. But things like intelligence or, various, physical skills or various other abilities are controlled by many genes simultaneously, so they're much harder to directly measure. Now you're seeing the results of this 13,000 kid study here. Controlling for environmental factors, that's what they mean when they say controlling for poverty and whatnot. Controlling for environmental factors, 11% of first cousin marriages result
Keep in mind again
in
that this is because the people who are doing the first cousin marriages are massively represented by people who keep doing it over and over and over and over and over again.
So 11% of kids in first cousin marriages have speech and language problems. In other words, they have delayed learning, inability to perform normal speech. And of the things that make us human, speech is definitely very high on the list. So a very clear marker of low intelligence. Again, nothing against the kids. I'm not making fun of anyone who is born with such a disability, but 11%, that's a lot. That 1 out of 9 kids in first cousin marriage doesn't develop normal speech patterns.
Versus 7% for non-related parents. They had a 54% chance of reaching good developmental stage by age 5 versus 66% for children of unrelated parents.
Don't worry. They've now changed the milestones in both the UK and the US post-COVID to hide the damaging effects of COVID. So now your child has to be incredibly severely delayed before you even know they're delayed. If anybody has younger children here, do not use any of the milestones that have been recently published. Use milestones from the 90s and early 2000s. It's bad.
And you're seeing the comparison. So I would hope that good development would be, 90%, but apparently it's 66% of the general population. I don't know what good is defined as here. And as Mary said, the standards are changing, right? But 54% of first cousins. So 12% drop. Again, controlling for all other factors, controlling for poverty and whatnot, controlling for other factors. There's a dramatic difference between people of non-first cousin marriages and children of first cousin marriages.
Yeah, they have a full school readiness checklist in the UK, but they're having a catastrophic time with.
Well, I mean, I would hope that the standard. I mean, yes, there's obviously other problems, right? There's obviously societal problems as well. That's what I say. I would hope that 90% of kids were school ready by school age. Yeah, just me.
Well, yeah, kids are coming not potty trained even to American kindergartens, which start a year later.
Wow.
Yeah, iPad generation. Kids can't sit for long enough to learn. They because they spend all their days lying down and using electronics. So no iPads, no phones, none of that for kids who are like less than 5. Just don't. It's bad.
Yeah. We won't get into this, but I agree with the general sentiment of Mary here that there are massive problems in society in America, UK, wherever, of not raising children, frankly, these days. And it's not restricted to, minority communities or Pakistanis or whatever. But even with the massive problems in the white community, you see more severe problems in these first cousin cases.
Yep. I have plenty of things to say about that, and it's all related to the same types of people who are making decisions about bringing in tons of Pakistanis and letting them marry cousins are the same types of people who are creating the conditions that parents do not think that it is their purview to potty train their children, because their purview is just feeding and clothing them. And everything else belongs to the state. So,
yeah, like I said, not the subject. We won't go into great detail, but I agree with the general concern of our education system and where society is going.
Needed more interventions, required more special education. And it's not just Bradford. Across the UK, cities with large Pakistani and Bangladeshi populations show similar patterns. Special education systems are strained, NHS budgets stretched. Some estimate the annual cost of caring for genetic disorder cases linked to consanguinity runs into tens of millions of pounds. France and Germany are seeing it too. As immigrant communities from Pakistan, North Africa, and the Middle East grow, so do the cases of rare genetic diseases in pediatric wards. Yet governments remain paralyzed by political correctness. How do you address a public health crisis when discussing it openly risks being called racist? One British Muslim counselor, Salma Yaqub, framed it best. Deal with it as a straight health issue, not a cultural judgment. Separate.
Kudos to Salma here, right? She's clearly Muslim, and she's saying, let's actually deal with this problem. Is this guy being sarcastic? Well, he's not being anything because it's an AI narration. He doesn't have any emotion.
Yep.
I don't think anything's intended to be sarcastic, though.
No. He has reporter voice. Or documentary narrator, Discovery Channel voice. There we go.
Yeah, anything that is humorous is inherent to the facts because it's just a straightforward telling of the facts for the most part.
Medicine from identity politics. But that's easier said than done. Even talking about this in Europe can get you labeled a bigot. And yet staying silent is killing children. So what happens when the truth finally breaks through? Some governments are trying. All 6 Gulf Cooperation Council countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Oman, now mandate premarital genetic screening. Couples must be tested for common recessive diseases like thalassemia and sickle cell before they can register their marriage. The goal isn't to ban cousin unions.
Yay! Notice that they're only considered only screening for like these specific conditions, which is all you could realistically screen for, of course. But the effects are much broader than these specific genetic conditions that are the obvious symptom of it, right? The cousin marriage itself is the problem, not the specific recessive genes you have.
Yeah, because just to be clear, the average, whenever we're talking about average IQ depression of like nearly 20 points, it's like a full standard deviation. This does not include the children who are severely disabled because they are not screened or included in these measurements in these countries. They go to like enrolled children and to adults they meet on the street. So this is exclusive of the severe disabilities. They still have depressed IQs. And they still have depressed IQs within the society. So this is not, oh, this is because of society itself, whatever. No, you go to Pakistan, you measure school children by their genetic inbredness, and you categorize them into highly inbred and not very inbred. And the ones who are highly inbred have very depressed IQs, very measurably depressed IQs when compared to those who aren't as inbred in the same village. So this does not address the problem. This is a negative effect on the global development because it is the rate of inbredness.
Yeah, so basically they say couches and marriage is fine as long as you don't have the specific genetic conditions that we can test for, which is just nonsense because like we said, the problem is much broader. General Principal says, great stream. I will go to bed now and see dreams about Islamic incest. I hope they're not graphic dreams, and my apologies for messing with your dreams. A super chat from Songs of Relief.
According to me, among the countries that exist today, Malaysia is the best place to live for Muslims, with a cousin marriage rate as low as perhaps 20%.
That's why Zakir Naik went there, because they have a low cousin marriage rate in Malaysia. I don't know what the actual rate would be. I would assume it'd be lower. It's concentrated in the Stan countries and the Gulf countries. somewhat lower in North Africa, and then probably the lowest in the Southeast Asian Muslim countries, I would guess.
Do keep in mind that just forbidding it is just going to mean it's going to prevent international trafficking, because you can't bring people over through marrying them to a cousin. But it's not going to really lower the rates of cousin marriage among people who are already there, because they're just not going to register their marriages.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, bluntly, there are like half sibling marriages in some of the weird FLDS communities, like absolutely nutty FLDS communities. They just don't register it. And again, this goes back to the idiotic choice that was made by Western governments to defining marriage as something that has to be legally registered, rather than saying that any social institution that is recognized as a marriage counts as a marriage, and you will be treated as such, and you will be prosecuted. So, like I said, you could end a lot of this tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You would deport everyone who has an Islamic marriage that is bigamous. Deport everybody who has an Islamic marriage that is incestuous after the incestuous marriages have been banned somewhere.
You could definitely do that. Wouldn't actually stop them from marrying in their own country, though. So so I'm not saying don't or do that or don't do that, but I'm saying better way is to end Islam.
Yeah, I mean, that's what really needs to happen. Islam needs to end. This is a stupid religion, literally a stupid religion that makes stupid people, that is based on the stupid beliefs of a dude who thought that breast milk makes you biologically related.
Mm-hmm. So Islam is a stupid religion.
And we're proud of that.
So Alam D said, was that AI generated Zakir Naik? No, that was the goat apologist. No relation to Zakir Naik. If you do a super chat and you put goat at the start of it, the goat apologist will read it. We also have the ape apologist, and soon we'll have a new one. The voting was extremely close, 52-48 in favor of dolphin. I'm going to do a second poll because someone made a suggestion maybe rat would be better. So I'll just be explicit this time. It'll be for Ali Dawa, but will dolphin or rat? I'm going to put up a poll which better represents Ali Dawa.
There we go.
And then we'll go from there. But our next one will be Ali Dawa. It looks like won by the narrowest margins over the peacock apologist. You'll have to wait till a later date to figure out who that might be, but I can add that at a later date as well. That's amazing and kind of scary good. Yes, it varies. Some voices are much easier to imitate than others.
Hijabs is hilarious.
Hijabs is very good.
Really good.
Very good. The ape apologist is very good. I did previously try to do Ali Dawa, and it was not as good, so I'm going to have to work on that one to try to get
You're going to have to select particular passages where he's sounding very squeaky.
Yes, exactly. I got to just do like one. I got to limit to him at his squeakiest.
Yep.
Yeah, so some voices work better than others for sure on the AI imitation, but you can find AI imitation of celebrity voices, and you can usually tell if you're really careful, but if you're not paying close attention, it'll sound like who it's supposed to sound like for the most part. And cartoon voices are especially easy to imitate. So that's why you see so many things with SpongeBob, for example, because they're already a artificial voice, right? A human saying it, but a human is altering their voice intentionally to make a humorous voice or a different voice or a distinct voice. And thus it's much easier for the AI to imitate since it's already not natural speech, strictly speaking. So cartoon voices are especially easy to imitate. All right, back to our amazing learning on cousin marriage.
Unions, but to inform couples if they're both carriers, giving them a choice. The results? Mixed. In Saudi Arabia, the program has reduced births of children with thalassemia and sickle cell, but it only tests for a handful of diseases. You can't screen for every possible rare mutation. And crucially, couples who test positive often marry anyway.
There
They're
we
told
go.
this, they acknowledge it, and then tradition wins. In Qatar,
So we already saw that indirectly with the number that only 23% don't realize the risk and well over 50% do it anyway. But now you're being directly told that in your case, there's a high risk, right? We found genetic conditions in your particular case. Who cares? Right? The testing was mandatory, so they had to do it, but then they just ignore the result of it because it doesn't actually prevent them from being married in Saudi Arabia or wherever. It just informs them of the risks. And then they say, I don't care. I don't care. Allah is in control. If he wants us to have defective children, we'll have defective children. If he doesn't, then we won't. It doesn't matter if we're cousins or not.
despite the screening program, cousin marriage rates actually increased to 54% in the last generation.
Whoops.
Up 10%.
That actually is extremely shocking to me. Not because of the genetic testing, but just that the rate is increasing in the Islamic world. I would think it would be decreasing.
I think more children are surviving to adulthood, so you have more opportunities to have cousin marriage.
But that wouldn't necessarily affect the percent. Or are you saying that in cousin marriage, in families that have been practicing this, they are having more children? That's
no. What I'm saying is that if you have larger families, you will be able to statistically have more cousin matches to be able to marry.
So you're saying that? Gotcha.
Yeah, as birth rates decrease, which they're crashing all over the Islamic world now, by the way. They're already below replacement in a number, and they will be below replacement in others soon. As they crash, the cousin marriage rate will also decrease because the likelihood of everything lining up so you have a cousin of the appropriate sex and age when you are of an age and sex with it, where your lives overlap at the correct way to marry will be decreased. But yeah, it's super common now because more kids are surviving to adulthood.
Yeah, I get it now. So you're saying there's more opportunities for cousin marriage. So they saw their old rate of 44% and they were like, let's up those numbers! And now they're at 54% cousin marriages in Qatar or Qatar, however you pronounce that. Very interesting. I just all things considered, I would have expected to drop, but Mary's probably right that it's more opportunities is why it's actually increased.
From the previous one, the UK is taking a different approach. No mandates, no bans. Instead, targeted genetic counseling for high-risk families.
So basically they're saying you're high risk because you already have a kid who's disabled. Let's screen your other kids for abortion. That's what this translates to, by the way, for the most part.
Yeah. So I'm sorry that I keep laughing. This is actually a very serious subject, but in the Gulf countries, in the most Islamic countries, the heart of Islam, they're like, this is bad. We should probably do something about it. They don't actually forbid it because it's too prevalent, but they're like, we should at least discourage it. In the UK, they're like, nah, you go ahead. You go right ahead and marry. That would be racist for us to tell you not to do that.
I mean, in the US, they recommend that you have genetic screening before you marry to see whether or not you have cystic fibrosis. And that's 1 in 10,000 people are carriers.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
If. Don't use the term if, because if will open the door of the devil.
That's what they're like in the UK. If you marry your cousins, well, don't say if. Don't say if. That opens the door for the devil. We'll just let them do whatever they want. We'll not give them any encouragement. We'll have selective counseling for high-risk families, whatever the hell that means. I don't know if that means people are already married to their cousins, and they're like, you should probably not have kids. Or
yeah. Well, sorry, not 1 in 10,000 are carriers. I think 1 in 10,000 births typically, if you're not screened.
roughly, if that's correct, then roughly 1 out of 100 would be carriers.
Yeah, I think that that's right. And that's in a typical American population.
Being racist is the worst thing in the world you can be. I know. That's why they're so afraid of being a racist, that they will just be like, man, cousin marriage in the UK, bring it on. We'll encourage you to bring your cousins here and give them citizenship or whatever it is technically in the UK. Legal status.
Born in Bradford study shows some encouraging signs. Between 2000 and 2010, 39% of Bradford's Pakistani couples were first cousins. By 2019, that number had dropped to 27%.
Woo!
That's significant. The reasons? Higher education, especially for women. More young people are staying in school longer, getting jobs, meeting potential spouses outside the family. Changing family dynamics, awareness. But
I'm going to add another one, which this video would not do, but 24% of the population leaving Islam, right?
Yeah. They're leaving Islam.
It's actually higher, right? That number 24 was based on a certain thing. I actually did a study a few years ago of all of Europe, and it was 31% actually. But if, a percentage of youth are leaving Islam, then those percentage are still Pakistani, but they are not going to marry cousins anymore, probably. And that's also another factor, decreasing the marriage rate between cousins in the Pakistani community. Take them out of Islam and automatically their life improves. I know, crazy stuff. Be sure to like the stream, or I'll know that you are a victim of cousin marriage yourself and couldn't figure out how to hit the like button. So thank you for doing that and helping this video spread. I've joked around a lot, but this is a very serious subject. There are real lives, right? Real people are affected by this, and it's entirely preventable, or almost entirely preventable. Obviously, you can still have rare genetic conditions if you don't marry a cousin, but as the numbers show, the vast majority of people with rare conditions are victims of cousin marriage. So it's mostly preventable.
But in Pakistan itself, where the need is greatest, the rate remains stuck near 64%. Economic development is slow. Fertility rates are still high, meaning plenty of cousins to marry. Kinship structures remain rigid. Education for women lags.
Hey, look, he agreed with you, Mary. He said that the rate is so high because there's lots of cousins to marry.
Yep.
And it's true. Of all the Islamic countries, Pakistan and Afghanistan are the only two that are still like in 18th century birth rates of, 8, 10, whatever kids per household. The rest of the Muslim world is rapidly declining, catching up to the West, which the West does have a significant problem in that we're having less than 2 children per, or less than 2.2 or whatever you would need exactly to sustain the population. But the Islamic countries are quickly catching up, which means in the near future, even without any apostasy, Islam will no longer be the fastest growing religion, since it's only fastest because they have more children, and that's largely changing in the Islamic world. But not in Afghanistan and Pakistan. There they still have tons of cousins.
But it'll change there too.
Yeah, eventually.
A recent study concluded bluntly, high rates of cousin marriage persist in Pakistan due to slow economic development, which maintains motivations for cooperation with kin, and high fertility rates, which sustain the large numbers of cousins. Young Saudis show promise. A 2024 nationwide survey found that 77% of Saudis now understand that cousin marriage increases genetic risk. Over 83% said that knowing the risk would influence their decision to marry.
And yet 54% still do it, even though 83% said it would influence their decision, but it didn't actually change their decision. But I do agree that there's a lot to be encouraged about among the young population in Saudi Arabia. I think that within one generation, Saudi Arabia will be a primarily secular country. I think that there is a.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I know that their king is not Muslim, but the Wahhabis have massive amounts of.
That's true. For now they have a lot of influence, but I'm encouraged that the youth are coming up, and the hardliners will mostly die out. And I'm encouraged that there's a good chance, at least, that Saudi Arabia will soon be a secular country.
A cousin. Younger, educated Saudis are far less likely than their parents to choose a cousin spouse. Women especially are pushing back, but change is slow. Cultural inertia is a hell of a force. And some voices within the community.
Yeah, I mean, when you only gain the right to drive a car in the last 20 years or so, women, it's definitely a little slow pushing back.
But one thing, Saudi Arabia is absolutely desperate to actually get some source of economic growth that is not dependent on the oil. And one way to leverage that is to try to get as many women as possible in the workforce.
That's true. And like I said, I do think the country is secularizing. I think that progress is being made on human rights issues. Now, I don't think that there's going to be a time in the near future where they have religious freedom, though, right? They might look the other way, but they're not going to have it on the books that you're allowed to leave Islam.
Up. Imam Sadiq, a British religious scholar of Pakistani origin, married his cousin years ago. 2 of his daughters were born with disabilities. Now he uses his platform to urge genetic testing and caution, calling it a health jihad to protect future generations.
A health jihad.
Yeah.
So he's saying like his advocacy is the jihad. But if you think about it, Allah has given
jihading against them.
Yeah, exactly.
This is kufr, this is shirk, I don't support this, I don't agree with this.
That the genetic defects are Allah's jihad against the Muslim community. I think it's good. I think it's good.
Progressive Islamic scholars emphasize that while Islam permits cousin marriage, it doesn't require it. If something permissible causes harm, Islamic ethics allow, even encourage, avoiding it. The principle of preventing harm or...
Oh, what a great religion. We allow you to do things that are... We allow you to avoid things that are harmful to you. And yet over 50% practice cousin marriage. Obviously, they don't think that it's all that harmful, or they at least think the benefits outweigh the harm.
Dar is fundamental in Islamic law. You can be a good Muslim and marry outside your family. But for every progressive voice, there are 10 defending tradition. And until leaders, doctors, and families can speak honestly, the cycle continues. Right now, as you watch this, another child is being born into this genetic lottery. Maybe she'll be fine. Maybe he'll have his mother's eyes and his father's smile, and never know he dodged a genetic bullet. Or maybe they'll spend their life in a hospital bed, blind and paralyzed, while their parents cradle them and wonder what they could have done differently. This isn't Islam bashing. This isn't attacking culture. This is a medical crisis hiding in plain sight. Cousin marriage may be a tradition, but it's a tradition soaked in preventable suffering. And the people who pay the price aren't the ones making the choice. It's the children. Always the children.
That's a very good point, right? The parents do pay a cost too, though. I do want to point out that the parents do pay a cost in taking care of their disabled children, but obviously the children suffer far more than the parents, and they obviously didn't make that decision. Think of the morality, right? Just think of the morality of intentionally rolling the dice and being like, you know, it's a 1 out of 4 chance that my kid will be born with a horrific genetic condition if I marry my cousin. But whatever. Let's roll the dice. Let's roll the dice. I care more about my wealth, preserving the family wealth, than I care about the suffering of my own children.
Frog Dog is almost as shocked as Kaya.
Kaya, but yeah.
Oh, Kaya, that's how you pronounce it. I've never
Not married
listened
your
to
cousin. This AI sounds very Islamophobic. I mean, it just told you it's not Islamophobic, which is, of course, proof that it is Islamophobic.
Uh-oh. But that. Not this, but that.
Oh,
that
yeah,
AI
yeah.
smoothing is kind of creepy. It makes him look like an enormous baby.
It was even a 3, right? It's not Islam or tradition, but a health crisis.
And then immediately went into another one. Not this, but that. Yeah. Once you recognize that pattern in AI, and also it really likes the word hell for some reason. it will say hell like as an emphasis word.
What the hell?
No, it'll be like
I know.
They had it in
like
here
this
earlier.
is hella good. Yeah.
No, not like that. It's like
no?
It isn't that they were malicious, but that they didn't know what the hell they were doing. It will say something like that.
Yeah, so I said, "What the hell?" the first time, and you're like, "No, not that."
Well, it has to be in context. It isn't just.
I know. Yeah. Have you seen the video called "I Hate David Wood" that someone made a couple days ago? I have not. Is it a joke?
I know. It's an atheist who wants to label him as a pedo and claim that he's like this now, and this is why Christianity bad, because he's lived the reform life for 30 years.
Christianity bad because atheist David Wood, when he was
evil.
18, had sex with minor teenagers who were sexually developed. That makes that means Christianity promotes pedophilia because atheist David Wood did that.
Yes, because he should be, I guess. I don't know what he should be in society according to them, because he finished his jail term. Now what? But yeah, I mean, want to do a stream about
he did his crime, did his
failure.
time. I mean,
yeah, I want to do a stream about the utter failure of modern ethics to have any kind of answer about appropriate sexuality and about what is good and what is evil and how completely broken it is.
Yeah, I mean, what an atheism would tell you it's wrong for an 18-year-old to have sex with a developed 15-year-old or 13-year-old.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane that it's pedophilia. I'm like, would it be wrong if he were 17 years and 364 days old? Because it wouldn't be illegal. He would be a child too. Child. Would it be wrong? Now, I would say that it would be wrong, and it would be approximately very close to the same amount of wrongness as at 18 and 6 months as at 6 months before. That 6 months is not that big of a difference.
Yeah.
And they can't.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why there's a cutoff. We have to have a cutoff. We have to be able to define things legally. But in reality, there is no cutoff, right? There is no clear date where you're an adult and the day before you were a child. It doesn't work that way. Becoming an adult is the process. So apparently, but meanwhile, say a 50-year-old could marry or forget marry. This is atheism we're talking about. Could have sex with an 18-year-old, and that would be perfectly fine and not pedophilia at all, or not any kind of sick sexual activity at all, right? Yeah, go make sense of atheism. Are you crazy? If you're trying to make sense of atheism, yes. And he also criticized how David talked about it recently. That would just be misunderstanding. I mean, plenty of Christians didn't like the way that David talked about it either. Like, he should be expressing remorse, and you're like, you realize that's an emotion, right?
And
he
why
doesn't
he was
have
also
emotions.
like trying to claim that what he said about his beliefs back then as an atheist were representative of what he believes now, which he explicitly denied. So
I know it's just not smart. I haven't seen this video. I can't comment on the video itself, but just the general attitude is just not careful thinking at all. It's just, oh, I can use the term pedophile, so I will. Yeah. Okay, great. Do you want to actually think about the issues involved here? No, we don't want to do that. We just want to label and move on. Label and move on. Got it. On this channel, we like to think. I know that that's not something atheists do very much of, but on this channel, we like to think. Let's take a couple super chats, and then we're
and
just got a minute or
change
so
our
left.
minds if we get new information, right, Pat?
Yeah.
God,
yeah. I change my mind all the time.
Today. Poor Pat.
And the atheists will tell me that there was a comment here a second ago. Let me pull it up. But basically, that they, no information could ever change my mind. This is why I'm a free thinker. I'm a free thinker. I'm not just following what my parents told me. That's why I will never change my mind, no matter what evidence you produce. And yeah, it's always a game. I would suggest if someone says, give me proof God exists, I'd say, sure, you establish the standard first. And they never establish a standard. Why? Because they know they're playing a game. At some level, they know they're playing a game. Whatever you suggest, they'll just come up with a reason to deny that. The only way, if you want to talk about absolute proof, it doesn't really exist outside of logic. So outside of logical statements, you can't prove anything. You can't prove that you yourself exist.
And if you're a materialist, you can have no confidence in logic.
Right.
That's the worst part. If you're a materialist, you can have no confidence in any of the systems that you have built of proof having any kind of meaning when it comes to establishing or finding truth claims.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So establish the standard that you would accept, and they will never provide one. At least in my experience, I don't know if I've ever had anyone provide me with a standard when I asked them for a standard. Because when they say prove God exists, they're already saying they're not interested in an actual discussion. They're just playing a game.
And then I asked them to prove that they exist. If I use,
you can also do it that way.
Yeah. Okay, prove you exist.
Why do you have no feels, David? This is the consequence of Christianity.
Something like that.
You don't have normal emotions. Oh, goodness. All right. 2 super chats, and then we'll finish up the video from Harbinger, Steve Mashny.
If you frequently say it, Allah would pay off your debts. So you can refer to it back again, inshallah.
Not sure about the truthfulness of that, but thank you for the donation nonetheless. Maybe if you say it's painful over and over again, Allah will pay off your debts. Maybe you won't. This is so painful. Pray my eyes be opened. Sure thing.
May eyes be opened. May eyes be opened.
May eyes.
Pray, may eyes be opened, obviously.
Yeah, eyes are as my, didn't I? Yes. Pray that eyes be opened. Indeed. It is painful, right? It is unpleasant. I understand why people don't. This one, not so much, but especially child marriage. I understand why people don't want to talk about it. I understand why people want to avoid these issues. But the only way to improve things is to talk about them and bring them out into the open. As long as they're hidden in the darkness, they will persist. So I also pray that eyes be opened. And from Alzoot Meatpacking, interesting name there.
من ذا الذي يقرض الله قرضا حسنا? Who is going to give Allah a good loan? Ya akhwati, this verse puts shame in my heart. My Lord is asking for a loan. Nothing's wrong with that guy. He has ability, but only a little bit of cash flow problems. Just needs a little bit of money right now. So give to Allah. Don't ask for anything back, guys.
Thank you for helping out with Allah's cash flow problems. I'm extremely homely. My first cousin was a cheerleader for the Ohio State University. I might have risked it.
Uh-oh.
Thank you for the donation there. And definitely do not buy any meat from the Al Zout meat packing company. I don't think you'll enjoy the kind of meat they are selling. All right.
In Bradford, Mohsen Akhtar still wanders his house, clutching his toy cars, crying in frustration because his 17-year-old mind is trapped in a body that never developed past infancy. His parents love him. They didn't want this. Nobody does. But intention doesn't erase consequence. How many more children need to go blind before we call this what it is? How many families need to bury babies before tradition yields to science? Until leaders find the courage to speak up, until communities face the data without denial, until young people break the cycle despite the pressure, the epidemic continues. This isn't about choosing between culture and compassion. You can honor your family, practice your faith, respect your elders, and still marry someone who doesn't share your grandfather's DNA. The weight of tradition is heavy, but the cost in lives is heavier. And somewhere tonight in Pakistan, in Saudi Arabia, in Bradford, a mother is rocking a disabled child and wondering if anyone will ever tell the truth.
So that is the end of the video. It was slightly repetitive. It was 25 minutes. It probably could have been like 15 to 20. That probably would have made a better video.
Well,
but overall, good
ChatGPT
information.
has a hard time not repeating too because it doesn't know where it's going. But yeah,
That's true. Yeah, there was things that were like brought up as new information that it had said before. So it could have been better, right? Okay. My advice to the guy who made this, if he ever watches the stream, which is unlikely, go ahead and start with the AI script, but then refine it, refine it, make it more compact, make it better, make it more human. If you don't have enough confidence to write the script directly, then at least refine it, because there was some definite unnecessary repetition there. And by the way, you could have also cut that out in editing. All right, just because you have the script, you could have done on the editing end as well. So even if you, whatever. Anyway, good facts, good information. I'm glad that this is being talked about. Like I said, the channel isn't like a channel that talks about Islam exclusively, or a religious channel, or anything like that. It's a channel like we're looking at. It seems to be looking at like issues in the developing world in general, or the non-Western world in general. And, probably a lot of them are controversial things, but they're not all like Islam focused by any means. There are some other videos.
Whoops, I can't hear you now. I heard your system noise and then I couldn't hear you again. You're not green either. So apparently that is an issue. So
all right, I should be back.
There, you're back. You're back. What happened?
There was the system sound was saying the microphone got disconnected, and then it was reconnected, but for some reason it didn't actually come back on this. I went to check it and it said no audio source selected. So I reselected the microphone. Nice. That works again.
There you go. Cool.
It just randomly cut out for no apparent reason. Yeah, no sound. I got it. We figured it out. Cat looking down. Yeah, not directly from AI, but refined to sound more natural. AI can be a useful tool, but it should never replace your entire workflow, right? You shouldn't just like generate some stuff and just believe it. And in this case, the guy apparently did research, right? I'm sure that those facts weren't generated from the AI. He did research and he fed in an outline of what he wanted to talk about.
Yep.
And then just, as near as I can tell, just probably used the script directly.
Yeah.
To refine the script down a bit.
Not X, but Y. This, but also this. It's
too much nerdy detail. I don't know if you mean me talking about AI or you mean this video. Either way. Hopefully the information was useful. And like I said, if you want to check out the original video, it is linked in the description. Couple comments to wrap us up here. First, Natha on David said that he emphasized that the girls consented. Technically, legally speaking, they can't consent, but yes, it was.
Well, I mean, they do Consent in terms of whether or not it's statutory rape or forcible rape. It's acknowledged in the law.
Right.
I mean, he was at a party where kids were coming to drink and hook up.
Exactly.
He
was at a party.
Even going to a neighbor's house
attending.
and flirting with a girl and then sleeping with her. No, he was at a party where the girls were to drink and or do drugs and hook up with other people. So, like, still wrong. I have a reason for saying it's wrong. I have a reason for saying it's wrong and would have been wrong if he were 17 and a half, if he were 16, if he were 15, it would still be wrong. I have the ability to say that. Do you know who does that? The atheists. They have no reason to say that. Indeed.
Like, in reality, these issues are nuanced. It's not just black and white. One day you're a child and the next day you're an adult. And there's a huge difference between an 18-year-old hooking up with a 15-year-old or a 13-year-old at a party where the 13-year-old and 15-year-old have come to in order to drink and have sex with, say, a 30-year-old seducing an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old or a 15-year-old or whatever. There's a difference between that. And there's also a huge difference between someone who is sexually mature, at least maybe they haven't quite completed puberty, but they're well in puberty and they have clear signs of being an adult, and someone who's 9 or 8 or 6 and is prepubescent, right? There's legally, there's not a huge difference. There is some difference in the law, but legally there's not a massive difference. In reality, biological reality, there is a massive difference. If you are attracted to someone who is not sexually developed, that is completely and totally different than being attracted to someone who is under 18 but sexually developed. They're just not the same thing at all.
And even hebephilia, which is not an attraction to, but a preference for. Pedophilia is attraction to. Hebephilia is considered preference for, seeking out teenagers when you're not a teenager, who have not completely completed every bit of their development. And that is considered more of a social vice than a disorder per se, because it's not abnormal for a man to find a man who is 30, 40, 50, 60 to have a biological attraction to someone who is 16, but then the social element should be what? That should be the social reaction to, right. But that's social rather than, whereas what is considered to be abnormal is having that thought even cross your mind at any level with a prepubescent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, as a 45-year-old man, I can say that I would find having sex with a teenager to be icky, but it's not remotely in the same category as my reaction to, say, an 8-year-old girl who's a pageant girl and is dressed up in a quote unquote sexy manner or something, right? I'm not even talking, I'm like intentionally sexualized. I would still find that like massively different. I wouldn't want either one. And as Dalmy Tree Cutter says, any sex at any age without marriage is sinful, whether society says it is or not. And of course, I agree with that completely. Like Mary said, we have good basis for saying these things are wrong. The atheist doesn't. The atheist has no basis for saying that there's something inherently wrong with a sexually mature 18-year-old and a sexually mature 15-year-old hooking up at a party, or anything else, right? Or a 45-year-old and a 25-year-old or whatever, right? They have no basis for saying that that's weird or wrong. Or someone having sex with 100 different partners. They have no basis for saying there's anything wrong with that. We have basis for saying that. And yes, the pageants of primarily girls, they might exist for boys, I don't know, but 90%, 95%, whatever, little girls is very strange. And
well, they're all disgusting.
Generally say
they're all pageants are disgusting or revolting. Pageantry is a disgusting practice. It is revolting. It should not be practiced. It is shameful that Christians participated, and they should be they should repent and they should pray. Pageants grew out of livestock showing.
Oh God.
And a eugenic movements. So you're displaying the breeding of the girls and determining the good breeding of that this has produced and the excellent specimens, recognizing it as livestock breed stock. That's not the way we treat human beings. And the idea of a beauty pageant existing, the fact that, again, this is why these
frankly, I would say
ideas,
that beauty pageants for adult women are strange enough, right?
yes, they're strange. They are unchristian. They are anti-Christian. They are absurd. They are ridiculous. They are obscene. And the ones for children are just revolting. They're disgusting at a fundamental basic level. And the fact that Christians are so gullible. Oh, make Miss America only have women. Make sure it only has women. No. Make it gone.
Yeah,
the idea of showing off women like livestock in skimpy, just revolting. It needs to stop. And the children's is even worse. It is abominable. It needs to go away. It was an outgrowth of the agricultural revolution turning to eugenics and the sexual revolution, and it needs to go away. We don't need to turn back the clock to another depraved and disgusting time. There's no time in history. Well, that's the time when everything was great. No, we should turn away from depraved and disgusting things.
Yeah.
No matter what time period they're from. If it's from the 1920s, the 1820s, the 1620s, the 1720s, if it is depraved and disgusting, we should have no part in it. Beauty pageants are depraved and disgusting.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. I don't remember if it was on stream or if it was in Boston or whatever, but I had paid no attention to the children's pageants or whatever. I recently learned that they even have swimsuit competitions, which I thought it was weird enough or disgusting enough when they were like, wearing ball gowns and having big makeup on and whatnot. But if they're also having swimsuit contest at these little kids' beauty contest, it's just like, what in the world is wrong with you? The only purpose of the swimsuit costume is to sexualize the woman and say, oh man, she's hot in a bikini or whatever. So why in the world is it in the little kids competition? I don't know. I have to think that while certainly a lot of it is mothers for some weird reason buying into this, I got to think that there's some sick men who are behind these things to begin with, wanting to look at prepubescent girls mostly unclothed. I don't know. Very strange stuff. Very strange stuff. Let's put it this way.
Absolutely sickening and disgusting.
Little Christian friends triggered happy birthday. Jack Ray with 50 gifted memberships. Big donation from Jack Ray.
If you frequently say it, Allah would pay off your debts. So you can refer to it back again, inshallah.
I don't know if this is a joke or not, but let me finish with Jack first. Apparently it is working, right? Apparently, referring to it back again, Allah is paying off all his debts because he just keeps on donating memberships on this channel, other channels. He's all over the place, donating all the time, getting lots and lots of benefits from Allah. Thank you very much, Jack Ray, for that. I said I might do a members live stream while I was in Boston. I ended up doing a regular live stream. I will have a members live stream coming up soon. Now, I don't know if this is a joke or if this guy is seriously brain dead. Isaac, 40 years old, married Rebecca, 3 years old. Why don't you go ahead and read the Bible passage? Does it say anything about either party's age? And does it sound like it's describing a 3-year-old girl? If not,
it specifically uses terms that cannot be used for prepubescence in multiple places. No. No, she has called things that cannot be used. They're terms not for prepubescence. In 2 different places, 2 different terms of her are used. They're never used for little kids. So, nope, that did not happen. So again, I just want to point out that a Muslim is coming into a scream about the terrible low IQs of Muslims as a result of incest with a terrible low IQ argument, demonstrating the consequences of incest in his own family line. Good job. Good job.
Indeed. Indeed. So I think someone timed him out. Oh, no, just deleted the message. Fine, whatever. He definitely shouldn't be timed out without warning. I just want to make that clear. My policy is not to time people out without warning. And we're about to wrap up, so there's no point in timing anyone out anyway. But yeah, Rebecca is watering 10 camels. The terms used in the passage are of a young woman, someone past the age of puberty. She's out on her own. She's doing family chores. She's not a little girl, okay? I don't care what some moron said at some point. She is clearly not a little girl in the passage. But notice what you as a Muslim, you have to do. You have to go and say that, Muhammad's pedophilia was perfectly fine because the Bible has pedophilia too. Why are you against pedophilia? When Muhammad married Aisha and she was playing with dolls and all that was just perfectly fine.
Innocent child, a little girl. She's just playing with dolls. She's just playing with dolls. And you called her beautiful. You are disgusting. You are a pedo.
Daniel, the expert on child marriage, letting us know what this would be called. And indeed, he's calling David Wood, since we brought him up earlier, a pedophile. And for some reason, it's not a pedophile when Muhammad did it because he wasn't 18. And his partner wasn't a teenager. He was 53 and she was 9 when he consummated the marriage. That's not pedophilia. It's only pedophilia when you're close in age and you're both teenagers, apparently. Happy 45th birthday. Yes, I turned 45 in September. Thank you. No one triggered the new animation. Guys, how dare you? How dare you go the whole time with no one triggering it? So now I will have to do it myself. Or maybe it. Maybe it's good. There it goes. Okay, it just took a second. I can't believe no one triggered that. Come on, guys. How could you not trigger? I spent like 2 hours making that.
They probably didn't click over to read down and figure out how to do it.
Yeah, they're like, I'm not interested enough. What new animation, says Snoopy? Yeah, what new animation? It probably hasn't played yet for Snoopy. It's probably playing.
Well, they're probably.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's playing right about now.
I have it up to see what's running at the same time. But
There we go. Little Christian Friends triggers it. And you can trigger that at any time. No one went whole hog. Indeed, no one went whole hog. You see, I allowed you to. People ask me to do that. I'm like, I don't know. I have had it in the past where you can interrupt us, but I was like, I don't know. But I decided to do it.
Yeah, you should just make it instead of halal hog. You should make it
So actually
remember
also works. The animation is halal hog, but secret, you can't have a space in it. But if you did this without a space, it would also work. Would work without a space. So, but officially, it's the halal hog animation. That's the official way to trigger it. Just like the flip that was just triggered is officially Islamic mode, but you can trigger it with flip as well. So there you go. And there, too many Marys just triggered it with See, there you go. It worked.
I have 230,000 points.
Well, you're on every stream. I mean,
good grief.
I didn't see how many I have. I probably have a similar number. Anyway, it's available now. You can't just say you do have to put the exclamation point, but
no, you only have 58,000 points. I have like 4 times as many as you do.
I can't believe no one. I hinted at it multiple times, and the bot was spamming it the whole time. Now everyone's triggering it. Okay. All right. Yeah, I took that earlier, and one last super chat from Yusuf. And give it a second. I probably have the...
Wasting your time on social media is one of the best deeds a Muslim can do. There's a huge need for it. You know this and I know this. So that makes the reward even greater. So give generously and Allah Azza wa Jal will give you even more.
The reason it wasn't triggering right away is because there's a delay.
You forgot to put in the delay.
There's a delay to prevent it from overlap. Well, there's a separate delay for the super chats to make sure that they're not overriding any of the animations, or more accurately, the animations aren't overriding them is really the purpose. So it was still counting down the previous halal hog, and that's why it didn't trigger right away. But apparently you can do 2 halal hogs right after each other. Anyway, did minor Google research? Abu Bakr is related to Muhammad. So did Muhammad marry his cousin's daughter, Aisha?
No, Abu Bakr is like related way back. They're not closely related. It's like a bunch of generations back because they're all from the Quraysh, who are at least officially will descend from the same person, even though they really weren't. I mean, Quraysh means the gathered ones. It's an artificial tribe that consisted of one small tribe and a bunch of other small clans coming together and pretending that they had the same ancestor. They did this adoption thing where they would reassign one of their distant ancestors a different father to reform synthetic tribes. So but they weren't closely related. He liked her because she was very white. Her older sister was not as white, but he really liked her because, you know, her mom was super white and she was really white, and he liked the white girls.
Yeah, indeed. He liked the white girls. See, sometimes the timing will work out, even though it's delayed for you guys, because we're about 30 seconds to a minute behind you guys. So when you're hearing it, it's what we said 30 seconds ago. Yeah, there is no Thad animation. There is no Thad animation, at least yet. You can do the Thad emoji though. Nathan says the double and on my soundboard I can do the triple
That AI is really disturbing. He looks like a baby because it smooths his skin weirdly as it makes the definition, the high def improvement makes him look like a huge baby. It's very odd.
I don't think I can probably call it up on demand, but so to be clear, Sam said that while he was in the tiny little corner window, and so it's like, I don't know, 200 pixels of resolution or something. So AI upscaled it. This one, Mary says, is too smooth, but the first one, it made him like extremely wrinkled. He looks like he's like 65 years old or something. 80 years old, maybe. I don't think that I can easily pull that up, or I would show you. Remind me next time, and I'll show you.
So it went from overly wrinkled to overly smooth baby with the upscaling attempt. Not.
But the little one that you can be triggered here, which I just put it up on screen, so it didn't play the noise as well. But this one, I took the screenshot, right, of him, and then I said depict. Well, first I upscaled it, and then I did the screenshot, and I said depict this person as a pig, and then it drew a pig, and I was like, okay, make it a fat pig, so it made his face fatter. I adjusted the eyes, and most importantly, right, by default, it had some fur on its head. So I said, you got to make its head bald and shiny, or it won't properly be the halal hog. So very smooth and shiny head on the halal hog intentionally.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. You should do the Ali Dawa emoji, and we're proud of that. Do you mean I should do a Ali Dawa thing that you can trigger? I don't think I'd make it. I don't think I'd allow the audience to trigger the whole. We're proud of that. It's kind of long.
It's a little bit.
It would be too interrupting, I think. But if you actually meant emoji, there is an Ali Dawa emoji.
The grapes.
Yeah, it's Ali Dawa eating the grapes, right? So there you go. I spammed some Ali Dawa emojis for you in the chat.
All right. I'm gonna go ahead and take off now because I'm getting super stiff.
Yep.
So I think we're ready.
Yep, we're
gonna get to walk.
We are logging off anyway. So we'll let Mary drop, but I'm about to say goodbye anyway. Delmy says Delmy as a command. Obviously, that's not going to do anything. Thought he was like 45, 20 years ago. I don't know how old Sam is. I actually don't know how old he is. I assume he's approximately the same age as David, so like between 40 and 50, I think, but I don't know that for an absolute fact. You okay, Mary? No, she's not okay. She was all stiff and she needed to log off. All right. Thank you all for tuning in today. You do also have the Ninja Mary emoji, the Thaddeus Scientist emoji, and about 25 other emojis that are available to members. Like I said, we're going to have a members only live stream here in near future. However, immediate future, tomorrow, I'm streaming with David Wood, your brother in Christ, and El Iso Elohim. We're going to be looking at claim put out by the Muslim cowboy that Muslims were the first people to discover the Americas, or I guess the first people other than the native people, because they also discovered it, obviously. But, the first people to sail boats across the ocean and discover the Americas. Apparently Muslims did that, so we're going to be looking at that video tomorrow. Friday, I'll be streaming with Apostate of Allah. Can't remember her screen name for a second there. Streaming with Apostate of Allah, looking at how Sam's people got her video exposing Sam taken down as harassment. Good job, guys. We'll definitely give that some more attention since you love that so much, or we're so bothered by it. We'll give that some more attention. And then over the weekend, maybe do a member stream, maybe do something else. I'm not sure exactly. Definitely have a couple videos that I'm working on, scripted videos that will be out soon. I was distracted the last few days. I was hoping to have them out by now, but that didn't happen. Before the Vikings, yes, before the Vikings. Muslims discovered America before the Vikings did, apparently. So this is not about Muslims, some Vikings being Muslims. We did that in a previous stream, but this is about Muslim sailing ships across the Atlantic Ocean and discovering America, or at least one Muslim, apparently. Not Vikings, different Muslims. If you don't know what we're talking about with the Vikings, check out my stream with David, your brother in Christ, and L, on Muslim Vikings. That was a fun one for sure. Until we meet again, everyone, don't forget that we'll be back. And of course, we'll close out in the traditional way with a prayer from Pastor Jake.
Pray this ceaselessly. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me.